Welcome one and all. It's time for yet another Old World tournament report, the affair of the Miscasting Wizard. Now, as you can see, I'm playing Dwarves, so I'm not going to have any Miscasting Wizards, so I don't feel like I was able to fully participate in the affair, but you'll have to wait and see, with bated breath, to find out whether any of my opponent's wizards managed to miscast themselves into oblivion, or perhaps successfully cast their spells and cast all the dwarves into oblivion. We will find out shortly. We have got a packed house in the chat, I can see already. We've got Saurus Blood, we've got Giovanni, we've got Monster Helmet, and we have got Ginger. Good evening. Right, let's get rid of this thumbnail, which is a lovely photo that wasn't taken by me, by the way. This is very stylish. I don't know who took this photo. I assume someone who was running the event, going around taking photos of the armies. There we go. There is my list. That is the dwarf forces that are going to be taking on 5 games. And what is this army designed to counter? Well, I was anticipating facing Bretonnians. There's been quite a lot of those around at the moment. They've been doing well at events, lots of Pegasus Knights. So, after last time as well, I wanted to change things up when I ran the 2 enormous long lines. And that was pretty much my entire army. So nothing like that here. We've got lots of small units instead. The thinking is that loads of Pegasus Knights, if you've got like 7 of them and a character charging into something, if I've got 20 or if I've got 5, it doesn't matter because they're probably going to wipe me out anyway. So I've gone for smaller shooty units, and then if I come up against an army like that, the plan is that I'm going to set up so that I can't be overrun into various other units afterwards, and then turn around and shoot them. So we've got some things in there that don't care about where you are. They're still going to shoot you. So we've got things like the Organ Gun, the Thane of Doom with his handgun with 1,000,000 potential shots, Iron Drakes. None of those really care about spinning around. The Anvil of Doom as well with its magic missile. All of them, any direction, just turn around and start blasting you. So that's the thinking there. And I also just wanted to use my new King on Shieldbearers. There he is, freshly painted in amongst 11 Iron Breakers. Now, I don't hold a lot of faith in him getting into combat, because I'm searching for this sweet spot with dwarf combat units, and I'm not entirely convinced that the sweet spot actually exists. The sweet spot is, you need to make a combat unit that is so powerful that it's a threat to the enemy, but not so powerful that they believe it's a threat to them. So they have to be confident that they can kill it, so that they charge you, and then they're taken by surprise and killed. I don't know if that sweet spot actually exists, so I don't know whether dwarf combat units are forever doomed. And if you set them up to guard some of your other units, then the opponent might think, well, I just won't attack that either. So I'll leave those 2 units alone, go and kill everything else. So if your counter to that is to then put your entire army guarding each other, like cramped up into the corner, then they might think, okay, well, I'm not going to come near that. I'm just going to throw a pillar of fire towards you and run away. And you can deal with that for the rest of the game, hopefully. And if it kills any of you, they'll happily take the win. So I'm not sure dwarf combat units are a winner, but we'll see how it goes, because I've not used the old Shieldbearers before. I'll tell you exactly what I've put on him as well. So, to make him even more survivable against some of the things that I anticipate being a potential threat, I've put on the king. Let's check out the runes. So I've put the Rune of Preservation, so that makes him immune to Killing Blow and Multiple Wounds special rules, because obviously on Shieldbearers you've got 6 wounds, so that's a lot of wounds, and you don't want them all disappearing at once because someone comes in and hits a killing blow on you. Then also Rune of Fortitude to put him up to toughness 6. Which should be significant in limiting the output of any of the big stuff that you might get into a challenge with. Dragons, perhaps, who are around about that level of strength, so it's going to be more difficult for them to get their attacks through against him. I've given him a great weapon, and the great weapon does have a small rune on it. Let's see what it's called, the one I chose here. The Rune of Fire, so it's got flaming attacks, and the reason I went for that is because it's very cheap, and I'm anticipating that the Green Knight will be at the event. lots of Green Knight around there at the moment, and you don't want to go in without any magical weapons, or at least combat res. So you probably wouldn't want to hit a unit like this, ideally, but you do get some other ethereal stuff out there as well. I've also put a magic weapon onto the anvil for that reason as well. So, let's see. The king is the general, and he's not super tooled up. He's 261 points, which isn't that expensive. The Anvil of Doom has 1 auto dispel, 1 rune of spell breaking, and have we got a picture of the anvil? There we go. 1 rune of speed on the hand weapon. So it gets +1 to initiative. Doesn't really do much though, because anyone charging him is mostly going to go first. But it's there purely so that he has magical attacks, so he can't get tied up by the Green Knight forever, like he did in a previous game. Then we've got the Thane with the Handgun of Doom, who is also in this list the BSB. So you're getting 2 birds with 1 stone there for 163 points. He has a Thane, and he has the Handgun of Doom, which is the... Let me give you the names of those runes here. So, Engineering Weapon runes. He's got Master Rune of Bursting Flame, Rune of Rapid Fire, Rune of Accuracy. So 2 shots, and gains Quick Shot, and then has the Rune of Accuracy, so does not suffer any negative to hit modifiers, and Rune of Bursting Flame turns each hit into 2d3 hits. So, like a little organ gun, ready to start blasting away. And he's dangerous to enemy skirmishers because of the no negatives to hit thing, so that could be good. And also potentially things like knights, which my army doesn't typically struggle against anyway because the organ gun's quite good at that. The iron drakes are good, and I've got lots of thunderers in this list as well. In the core, now what have we got? We've got, if we look down here, you'll see there's a unit of 5 dwarf warriors with no upgrades at all, minimum. And the plan for them, depending on the setup, I am thinking about using them as a Doomseeker delivery system. So if I'm up against an enemy that I know is going to want to charge me, and something like Iron Drakes, I've got the Iron Drakes in front, Dwarf Warriors just behind them, like right up against them, and then Doomseekers on either side behind these guys. So if anything comes in and kills the Iron Drakes, or whichever unit happens to be there, then they could overrun into the Dwarf Warriors, but only overrun 1 inch, so they're not going to get any kind of big initiative bonus out of it. And then the Doomseekers from either side will then charge in to that unit and do their impact hits and get all their attacks. So that's what I'm thinking with that unit. We'll see if I manage to set that up or whether I don't feel it's appropriate based on any of the opposition. But otherwise, the Doomseekers are just going to run off on their own and do their own thing. Oh, and I should point out as well that I've constantly forgotten that they do have some kind of mercenary rules in this list for being mercenaries, which is really weird that Doomseekers are mercenaries in any particular dwarf list and they're not just a part of the list normally. So whatever the mercenary special rules are, I've never looked them up and I forgot that they exist until at some point today someone reminded me that they should have some kind of roll. I think it's before the game. You roll on a table to see what negative effects you have for being a mercenary, but never done it, barely know it exists, but I'll try and be aware of that in the future, unless I take the list that allows you to take them just as a regular part of the list. Rest of the core, let's have a look. We've got 7 Thunderers, 8 Thunderers, and 11 Quarrelers. So the Quarrelers are mostly going to go on a hill, which is why I've set them up like this. And they've got the longer range, so they don't mind being on a hill that's quite far back. And all of these units have a champion, but no other command. So they get the extra ballistic skill for the champion, and also if something attacks them, they can issue a challenge with the champion as well, so that hopefully that stops them being annihilated for 1 turn. So double whammy for having the champion there, you get the extra bonus. Then 11, yeah, that's Quarrelers, 12 Rangers then. So, smaller unit of Rangers, they don't have any runes, they have got the great weapons and the crossbows and the throwing axes and the shields and the full command, but it's less investment than taking a bigger unit, and I have been running huge units of Rangers recently. But I think it's a little bit of a liability, because if they go out on their own somewhere, then that's a big chunk of points the enemy can kill, and if they then hide from the rest of your army, then they're going to win. And I don't like that idea very much. So what it forces you to do when you take a unit of Rangers that big is keep them back in your deployment zone somewhat, or at least defended by the rest of your army, and you're losing out on a lot of what the Rangers are paying for if you do that. So I think taking a smaller unit, I'll be more inclined to put them in forward positions, maybe behind the enemy if I get chance, or just to the flank of the enemy, and anything they send over there to kill them is going to be killing significantly less points. The unit comes in under 200 points now, and previously it's been getting closer to 300, and I feel like that's too much, potentially, for a ranger unit. So we're going to try the slightly smaller unit this time. In special, we've got a grudge thrower, which has 1 rune of forging. I do not have an engineer in this list, so the organ gun and the grudge thrower will not be benefiting from that. I just didn't think, because I'm only going to have the 2 war machines, and I might deploy them quite far apart sometimes, he's not going to be able to always benefit both of them, so I thought it was a bit too much with the other stuff I wanted to squeeze into the list as well. So in future there will definitely be engineers though, because I want to try out some different combos with the handguns. So more Thanes and engineers with guns, trying out the different tricks you can do there. 2 gyrocopters with the steam guns, and 11 iron breakers. They don't have anything particularly fancy, they're full command and they're drilled. And they are going to contain the king on the Shieldbearers most of the time. So they absorb some good punishment, the iron breakers, they've got a good save, and if the anvil can give them an even better save as well, then that'll be nice. We've got 8 iron drakes with the trollhammer torpedo and cinderblast bombs. Actually, the iron breakers have cinderblast bombs as well, so they can potentially use those for a stand and shoot, or just if the enemy happen to be that close to me. And then the organ gun and the 2 naked doomseekers. No upgrades at all, 50 points each. They're just going to try and get themselves killed and take something down with them, is the plan. So, what do I think I'll struggle against? Multiple dragons, perhaps, but you could say that about any dwarf list. I've never seen a dwarf list that I think, yes, that's built to do well against loads of dragons, because they have so many wounds that even if you get the 1 perfect hit on them, which is rare anyway, with a war machine or trollhammer torpedoes, you're still having to roll for the multiple wounds, so you may end up just doing 1 damage anyway, and that's if they don't negate it with one of their 15 different saves that they have. So I'm not confident in killing dragons. I'm not confident in doing massive damage output to an enormous, dangerous unit with any of this stuff. None of these units are really going to do huge damage on their own, so if they come up against something like a big block of 30 Chaos Warriors, something obscene like that, I think they might struggle there. But I could spread out and limit what they can hit each turn, possibly. So that's what I'd be looking for there. We've got... have I just spotted a live Remington in the chat? All the way from the Netherlands, where he's presumably on tour right now. Chilling in the hotel room, watching live tournament report action. What better way to chill out after a live musical performance than by watching Warhammer on YouTube? Amazing. Also got Eric in there, who I don't think I shouted out earlier. Good evening to everybody. So, I'm trying to get Mr. Remington Steele to come to an event at some point. But obviously, since he's a successful touring international superstar, rock star musician, then it's difficult to get him nailed down for a full weekend, ever, to go to a tournament. So hopefully, when he gets back, we'll have to probe his calendar and find one that we can slide into. So, let's move into Game 1, Open Battle. And Game 1 is up against the Vile Forces of Chaos, and they are Wolves of the Sea, which means that they have a pre-game ability where they can challenge you, and you can send one of your unit champions into the challenge, and whoever wins, I believe, gets the first turn. So, yeah, that's a cool thing that they have. Saurus Blood. I'm looking forward to seeing what Dwarves can do. As a Bretonnian Exiles player, they always feel like the hardest matchup for me. I do feel like Dwarves can be good against Bretonnians, but it depends what you're bringing. Because the Dwarf guns are very good against small numbers of well-armoured troops, because they've got good AP, and you can even give them better AP if you put like runesmiths in the unit as well. And very good at bringing down knights, because 1 failed armour save with a knight is quite significant. And the shooting is quite good at wounding Bretonnians as well, because they don't have very high toughness. So all the shooting being strength 4 or 5 for the Dwarves, they do quite well, I think, against Bretonnians. So let's find out what happens in this one. So we've got a Demon Prince, who is a level 4 wizard with battle magic, so we're potentially going to see some Pillar of Fire action going on here. Ruby Ring of Ruin, Infernal Puppet, which is irrelevant for this game. That just makes wizards have to, I think it's roll an extra spell dice and discard one of them. It's got Chaos Armor, it's got regeneration, it's unbreakable, so that's going to be difficult. Armor of Meteoric Iron, so pretty tough, and it'll fly 9 as well, the Demon Prince. Let's see if I've got some pictures of the enemy forces here. So the Demon Prince is that one, this one here, and then there's multiple other characters here. There is Friedal the Chainmaker, which is not on the table right now because it is an ambusher, and that is a character as Chaos Armor, Impact Hits, Mark of Chaos Undivided, Peerless Raider, and I think brings other units into ambush as well, which are some Marauders, I think, but we'll get to them in a minute. There's an Exalted Sorcerer with Hand Weapon, Light Armor, Demonic Mount. So the Sorcerer is... I reckon that one is the Sorcerer then. This vile looking person here. So that's got Mark of Nurgle, Demonology, and Chaos Armor, Gaze of the Gods, all the usual stuff for an Exalted Sorcerer. Yeah, that looks like Demonic Mount sized base, doesn't it? Then we've got, in core, lots of stuff that isn't on the table, because there's 10 Marauder Tribe Berserkers who ambush with flails. Then there's 10 more Marauder Tribe Berserkers with ambush and flails. And 2 lots of 5 Marauder Horsemen with flails, so they get that extra strength. I think it's just in the first round of combat, though, for a flail. Then 2 units of 5 Chaos Warhounds, which are here and there. And then we've got 3 Dragon Ogres, 3 Dragon Ogres, and 3 Dragon Ogres. So loads of Dragon Ogres, there's 2 units there, and the other one is here. So, well, you can see how shocked my Thunderer champion looks, because in the pre-game challenge I sent him forward in there and he got killed. Which is what I expected, but I didn't want to give up one of the champions that actually had upgrades on it. So let's go back to the wide shot and talk about the tactics here. So during deployment, I felt like I could go a little bit in this corner and use this terrain as cover, so to avoid any kind of flank maneuvers and prevent the enemy ambushes getting anywhere decent over here as well. So I've spread out quite across the table, so they're not going to be able to come on in any significant area. And I feel like they're only Marauders, so if they come on over here, at best they're going to get through some Quarrelers, and then I'll be able to maybe charge them with a Gyrocopter. I'd be able to flame them with a Gyrocopter because they're only Marauders, be able to turn around and shoot them with some of these units as well, and maybe throw a rock at them in this direction. So I started putting some of my decent units over on this side because a lot of the enemy meat was going over here during deployment. It's a big wall of Dragon Ogre meat and a Demon Prince there. So it's mostly over here, but I do have my Iron Breakers with a King there, so potentially can go in either direction. But I feel like if the enemy units start marching forward into my Iron... I've got my Iron Breakers there, and I've got my Iron Drakes here. So the Iron Drake's in a line with the warriors behind, so you can see I've already set up this manoeuvre I was talking about before, which is the 2 Doomseekers behind the Iron Drakes. So if the enemy go into the Iron Drakes, then if they do get through them, then the Doomseekers will charge them, and they're not going to be able to overrun into the Doomseekers because they're not lined up with the warriors in front. And if they don't kill the Iron Drakes, if they just kill a few of them, that's going to leave space for the Doomseekers to go in and charge them anyway. So I think that's a nice little formation that I'm going to try to use going forward. We'll see whether it comes up in this game, whether the enemy walk into this valley of death here. I put my Rangers out in front a little bit, not worrying too much about the doggos that are most likely going to attack them because they've vanguarded up there, and one of my Gyrocopters has vanguarded all the way from that side over here into the middle now. So on this side I've got the Thane, Organ Gun and the Anvil, so we've got quite a lot of pain for anyone that wants to come down into this alleyway, so they might not want to, but I'm thinking if they don't, the Anvil is the kind of thing that ambush units or a Demon Prince or Dragon Ogres wouldn't mind getting their teeth into, so I don't mind if that just stays protected. The organ gun can get some shots off and then not die, which is the goal for that. Doom Seekers can reposition themselves, depending where the battle takes place. And the Thane is good on the move and still shooting anyway. So let's see what the enemy does here in the first turn. After winning the pre-game duel, so they go first, the doggos charge into the rangers and lose most of them to the stand and shoot. And then the rest of the enemy forces decide, you know what, I don't like this valley of death you've created, I'm just going to go into the middle of the table instead. Which I'm not super disappointed about, and I'll explain why in a minute. So, we've got this pillar of fire that's been dropped down there, so that's going to be quite scary. And at some point I've lost my orange template during this tournament, by the way, my little round orange template. I lost it on day 2 somewhere. So if anyone's watching this and was at the event and sees an extra template in their box, then let me know. So, there's this big bundle of Dragon Ogres. Now, I'm thinking on the one hand, obviously, they're successfully hiding from some of my stuff. Like the Iron Drakes, not going to chase them around there successfully, but they could get traffic jammed behind each other here. There's potential for them to get stuck. If the first unit in there, for example, makes a charge and fails it, then the others kind of get locked in there behind. And potentially we could create a bit of a jam there. And if the Ironbreakers come in down here, then I can potentially get them into some action. Because if the enemy are coming in this direction towards the Rangers and I'm going in that way, then maybe they can meet and maybe I can actually get into a fight with this Dwarf King. That would be interesting. So, turn 1 for me. The Pillar of Fire is moving towards me. The Doom Seekers realise this flank is a lost cause, so they're just going to head on over here. I shoot down the dogs that were over on this side with my various shooting attacks and start shuffling things in this direction. The Iron Drakes are going back up there because what I don't want to happen is me to advance and then the enemy to just fall back behind this. They're still at my line of sight with everything, but also far away from my combat unit. So I want to keep them going in this direction with the Iron Drakes as a flank threat. So hopefully they push all the way into the middle and then I can get them with my Iron Breakers. But I think I probably could have been a bit more aggressive with them here. I did give them extra enchanted armour as well with the Anvil of Doom. So they've got the +1 to save and re-rolling saves. So I could have probably thrown them forward a bit more here because I don't have to care too much about dangerous terrain tests from the Vortex. So, in the next turn, the enemy declares some charges. So we've got loads of Dragon Ogres trying to charge into the Rangers. Stand and shoot doesn't do anything, sadly, and they make it in. The other one does not. They're too far away. And the Pillar of Fire doesn't actually make it to the Ironbreakers again. I think it rolled a 1 this time. Demon Prince is just hiding, as you well might under these circumstances. And we've got some Marauders coming in on the left flank. So we've got some Berserkers. We've got some spells being cast from there. And we've got all the cavalry coming in behind the Quarrelers as well. Now, I'm not too scared, because I'm going to be able to do some charging. The Gyrocopter can have a go at charging some of these units. So, not too scared yet. And you can see one Ironbreaker has been plinked off with a bit of spell casting, ranged attack. And the Rangers get killed. So some of them die, they fail the leadership, don't run very far, and die. So it's a bit sad that they're gone, but we've got the enemy into this central area, but I don't know whether I'm that poised to strike at them yet, because the Ironbreakers probably could have been a bit further forward, and then they maybe would have been in a position to declare a charge this turn. So, what am I going to do about this? Well, the Gyrocopter is going to charge something, and these two are just going to start blasting the Dragon Ogres and hope that the Gyrocopter can deal with this menace, I think. So into my turn. Gyrocopter charges into the cavalry, and I think we determined that it could just about see them, because it's a skirmisher, so it can obviously go in any direction, and I think we were able to draw some kind of line that just about touched one of them, I think. I don't know, looking at that from this angle, it looks like he probably couldn't have seen them. But I'm going to assume that we actually looked at it properly and figured out that one of them was visible. I feel like we might have made a mistake though, because this one at the back isn't actually on the hill. So I don't know whether I was drawing line of sight to that one. Or maybe it's supposed to be on the hill, that one. That would explain it, but he doesn't want to be resting there. Okay, so into my turn. Gyro goes in there, murders some knights, or some marauder horsemen, should I say. And chases them off, or chases them to the edge of the table. They don't quite die. All my shooting from this side into the Dragon Ogres doesn't do that much, sadly. And my Iron Breakers are moving forward. I think I failed to convey any of my units closer. I've brought the Doom Seekers down here in case anyone wants to charge the Iron Breakers and the King. Then they're going to be in play. The Iron Drakes are continuing their voyage as well. And the Organ Gun has also turned around now. I also think that in this game I'm cheating myself out of some extra movement with the Organ Gun because I can't find anything in the rules that says you can't march with a war machine. If that is in there, let me know, because it's not in the place I expected to find the rule. I just assumed that was a rule that existed. I don't know if I've ever actually read it somewhere, so let me know if war machines can't march. So I could have actually been moving it further this whole time. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Giovanni likes the deployment. We've got Don, missed the beginning. Yeah, I went over the army list a bit. But in general, it was designed with the Bretonnian meta in mind. Lots of small shooting units. So, let's see how it goes. Into... Oh, you can see the gyrocopter is steamed all the way over there just to become an annoyance for the enemy. And ready to do something to them next turn. Turn 3 for the vile forces of chaos. So, the Pillar of Fire heads over this way. We've got some charges declared from the Berserkers into the Quarrelers, and the other horsemen into the gyrocopter. So the Quarrelers flee and do not get caught, so that's fortunate for them. And that buys me a bit of time. Dragon Ogres are going this way, and at this point I'm thinking, actually, I don't know if they're going to get stuck in the middle now, because the Rangers died so instantly. I've got nothing to bog them down with, so I need to be getting towards them as fast as possible now, so they don't just sprint in that direction and leave me with nothing to kill. So the gyrocopter takes some wounds from shooting as well, from some spells. Thunderers get whittled down by the wizard there. And what's this? The gyrocopter wins combat against 2 units of Marauder Horsemen, and everybody's gone. They both flee off the table and die, and the gyrocopter pursues them off the table. Yes, you saw that right. The gyrocopter defeats 2 units of Marauder Horsemen. Okay, we'll take it. So that's a bit of a turnaround. The Pillar of Fire makes its way down here, past the Thane. Thankfully doesn't murder anybody. And into my turn, the gyrocopter comes back in. But I actually forgot to bring it back in. So at the end of the turn, I said, do you mind if I bring it back in? Because I forgot it existed. I said, okay, but I said, okay, I'm not going to shoot with it because I did forget to do it. So I'm not going to do his flame template this turn. So my Quarrelers turn round and just prepare to face that onslaught for another round of potential charges coming at them. And they won't be able to stand and shoot, I don't think, because I think they're too close. More shooting at the Dragon Ogres, and still just got that unit down to 1. And this unit has been whittled down to 2 now with my shooting. I've been setting up the Doom Seekers. My Anvil is repeatedly failing to cast the Conveyance spell, which means that I'm not getting the extra movement. And my Iron Breakers are realising now that they're not going to be able to chase down the enemy at all now. So they might as well just live. The gyrocopter on 1 wound hides behind a hill because it's just points denial at this stage. And it's one of the flaws in the design of the scoring system of the old world, I think. The fact that you're encouraged not to participate in the game if your unit is heavily damaged. You're encouraged to just hide rather than fighting to the bitter end to get those heroic moments. Which is sad. Okay, so not much accomplished that turn. The artillery, obviously, the organ gun should be about here by now. But I've not been marching with it. Oh, is that true? Saurus Blood says, War Machines cannot march, it's on page 197. Right, there you go then, so I've not been cheating. So I might cheat in a future game, because I wasn't able to find the section that says they can't march in the rules. I checked the rule book, and I checked in the... What's the name of the website that has all the rules on it? It is... Let's see, I'm going to pull that up here. It is the Warhammer Fantasy, the Old World Warhammer Fantasy Battle app that has all the rules on there. Couldn't spot it on there either. So to play it safe, I didn't do any marching, but then later on in the tournament, I think I did march a couple of times. So it didn't affect the war machines in any way, because they weren't able to shoot afterwards. So thankfully, I haven't cheated there. But I will check out that passage in the rulebook in a minute. Okay, Chaos turn. We've got a Dragon Ogre charging into Thunderers, who survives the stand and shoot. We've got Berserkers charging into the Quarrelers. Don says, lovely painting job on the King. He was a lot of fun to paint, actually. I haven't got a close-up of him right now, but I'm sure you're looking at one. But yes, it took me a long time actually to paint that, because you can't really assemble it all and then paint it to the best of your abilities, I think. So I had to assemble sub-assemblies. So it was the King separately, his cloak was separate, the shield that he's standing on with some arms attached to it, and then the guys carrying it. And then when you put it all together, you realise actually you can see most of the model that you've painted. It's not like some where when you stick together the sub-assemblies, you realised you spent 6 hours painting a piece that's never going to be visible to the naked eye. Yeah, it's actually quite well designed, so from different angles you can actually see most of it. Which is nice, so I didn't waste my time there. So the mistake of not bringing the gyrocopter back on and just forgetting to use it, so I didn't end up using my flame attack, means more of these guys are alive, so they're more likely to kill the Quarrelers now. So the enemy obviously are running away. They are in a slight winning position and they're no longer interested in facing the rest of my army, which you might say is fair enough because the rest of my army is quite strong at shooting them, so they might as well hide. The rest of the ambushers come on as well this turn. And a Dragon Ogre overruns through the Thunderers but doesn't quite reach the Quarrelers, but they die anyway and get cut down. So they fled, but because these guys are skirmishers, they were able to chase and not get stuck on their own Dragon Ogre. So, turn 4 for me. The Chaos forces are almost certainly going to win, but can I take anything down first? Because I have got some shooting tricks up my sleeve still. Turn 4, Gyrocopter running away, just preserving points. Doomseekers and the Ironbreakers are just giving full speed after them now. Shame the Anvil's not helping out more with that. The Thane is getting in position to try and do some shooting as well. I don't know whether I can shoot yet because I keep failing the conveyance. And I'm dropping rocks on them and routinely not doing much with that. So the enemy keep hiding and pursuing the Gyrocopter. Yeah, not much done with my shooting. Enemy turn 5 was pretty much just everyone get away. The Dragon Ogres are shuffling this way because obviously this building's in the way, so they can't go through that. So they are actually in danger. So we'll see if I can do anything to them in my turn 5. Get the Doomseekers closer, do some shooting damage to them. And the Organ Gun is getting closer. The Gyrocopter's still hiding. The Iron Drakes are lined up. I think I fired off a Trollhammer torpedo there. The Thane's been shooting them as well. So that unit's really the only one I can reach at the moment. Everyone else is hiding in the corner, as well they might. Turn 6 for the Vile Forces of Chaos. And we see a mistake here from my opponent, which was acknowledged by my opponent as well. So this Dragon Ogre moves all the way down here, so that it can't be targeted by, I'm not sure, maybe something here, maybe like the Thane. But in doing so, puts it in line of sight of the Grudge Thrower. So I'm going to be able to try and shoot that last Dragon Ogre off now. So I lose my Gyrocopter as well to the magic, vile, evil magics of chaos. So I've got 2 chances to throw the Doomseekers into the Dragon Ogres to hopefully either kill them or get killed, and then I can try and rock throw this one off to the table to death. Everyone else is hiding out of my reach. I don't even have enough movement with the Ironbreakers to get into position to throw a Cinderblast bomb at the wizard either, which is sad. And it is on a demonic mount, so it's probably got too many wounds for that to be much of a threat. So, my turn. The Doomseekers. One of them does make it into combat and die, the other one fails the charge. And I do manage to land a rock right on the Dragon Ogre and kill it though. So that's good. So salvaged a few points at the end. In general, it's the usual kind of dwarf thing. You whittle down units and then they run off and hide, and it's difficult to get them unless they make a mistake. And I lose all my squishy units and no one goes near the tough. Easy to see why they avoid these kind of units with a king in there. as Dragon Ogres. They look terrifying, but there's not that many wounds between the whole unit, and if you're fighting a Dwarf Lord like that, then it can be pretty scary for you. Like, there's not a huge amount of them, especially if they've been whittled down by shooting as well, and which they would have been. If they'd come this way, they would have definitely been shot severely by the Iron Drakes, among others, and the Organ Gun. So, that's the end of that game. So the final result is actually pretty close. Let me pull that up now on BCP, which is what is used for the Old World tournament matchmaking and such. Let me crack that open. So, round 1. So it was an 11-9 for the Warriors of Chaos. So I think I did actually salvage an extra tournament point by killing that final Dragon Ogre, because it would have been really standard Dwarf behaviour to just leave a unit alive with one model. So managing to finish that off was quite a big deal. What would I have done differently in this game? I think I would have been more aggressive in locking down the centre. But if I did that, would the enemy have just turned round and fled behind the trees along the back edge? Maybe, because I'm definitely not catching them. I definitely wouldn't be able to shoot them with anything, and all they would have to then do is bring on all the ambushes and kill one of my units, and then win the game. Interesting. So, yes, so the Dragon Ogre that was down here, the Grudge Thrower was able to just have a direct shot on him. So that's why he was able to land that direct hit and murder him. So, locking down the centre, I don't know whether it would have worked. I think a wise enemy would probably just avoid that area entirely. If the Ironbreakers and the Doomseekers are in range to charge, maybe just go around that way, mop up this side and then hide. And it's a downfall of my list that if I don't corner camp, then there is going to be a soft target somewhere the enemy can pick up, and if my shooting isn't able to kill anything, then they're just going to win by a tiny margin every time. So we'll see what I can do to mitigate that going forward. Obviously I didn't lose that much into the next round, and this is the Mountain Pass, so it's narrow deployment, and I'm up against the Warriors of Chaos again, so immediate revenge potentially against a different Warriors of Chaos list. And I'm going to crack open this list now. So this is not the same kind of list. This is the actual army list is called Warriors of Chaos Battalion Box Challenge, so it's mostly a list that you can make with the battalion box. I don't know if there's any extra stuff in there as well, or whether it's 100% battalion box based. But there is a Sorcerer Lord, which is a level 4 on foot with Mark of Nurgle Demonology, so potentially the spell that lets you fly halfway across the table with an infantry unit, so that's quite scary. Then let's see. We've got 5. Oh, nope, there's another Sorcerer Lord. And this one is on a chariot. So one of these two, which is this one here, because he's got a little flame in his hand. That one is the Sorcerer Lord, which has battle magic. So potentially we're going to see fireballs, pillars of fire, all that good stuff. And Ruby Ring of Ruin for some extra fireball as well. And Lore Familiar, so you can just pick your spells. Then we've got 3 units of 5 Forsaken. Now, these are my dream kind of units, because for my units, with just 7 or 8 or 11 or 8, or one guy with a handgun or an organ gun or an anvil that has a small number of shooting attacks, those are the kind of thing, if you get lucky, you can just take them out in one go. Or you can at least whittle them down to 1 or 2 models so that a stand and shoot will finish them off. So those are dream targets. We've also got 4 Chaos Knights times 2, so there's 4 over here, and this is also a dream target for any of my shooting, because there's not many of them, and each one of those failed armor saves is a huge deal. Then we've got a chariot. This is just a normal chariot, this one's not a character. 11 Chosen Chaos Warriors, which are up there. See, I've got some closer shots here. They've got the Sorcerer on foot in with them, I think, on that end. And this guy, who is that? That might just be a champion. Well, that might be a sorcerer, and that might be a normal dude that I'm mistaking for a sorcerer. It's because I saw the cloak. Then we've got a Warp Fire Dragon, which is 375 points. It's just a dragon, and that's it. So it doesn't have a rider on it. And you can see that if we go back to the wide shot, I've gone bold with the Rangers. They've just gone behind enemy lines because I don't feel like any of those units want to turn around and spend time going after my Rangers. If they just run away from me, I'll get 2 or 3 turns of shooting at them. If I go first, probably 3 turns of shooting. And I'm quite happy with that, and then the Rangers will just survive the game. If anything goes back there to deal with them, it's less than 200 points in that unit. And what could you send back there to deal with them? You couldn't just send back a chariot or 5 Forsaken, because the Rangers would just kill them. You could send back a dragon, but he's much more expensive than they are, and that means he's not getting to my other shooting units that are going to be shooting the rest of your army. You can't really send back 4 Chaos Knights, because that's too risky. They would probably lose against the Rangers as well. So they may well just get ignored and get to shoot freely for the entire game. Magic is obviously something you could use on them. You could throw a pillar of fire at them and just keep bouncing that over them for the whole game. But I would hope it wouldn't finish them off by the end. Steve says it's a genius move. Maybe, we'll see. If it was a much bigger unit of Rangers, then it would be worth turning round with a couple of things probably to deal with them because they're expensive enough. Or if you've got a really fast army and you can just get so far away from them that they're out of the game, then that's fine. But in this situation, I don't think these Chaos Warriors, these foot-slogging Chaos Warriors, are going to get far enough away to deny me shooting options for quite a while. So I think that's going to do well for me. What could you do to counteract that? Stick a unit here. I don't know which unit you would pick to go there. Probably something fast, so that it can catch up with the army again, like the dragon or one of the chariots maybe. Just stick there, so that you can't have scout deployers behind you. That would be my suggestion. Then, onto my side, you can see I've got lots of shooting units on the front lines, because most of this stuff is not very fast. Most of this is infantry, and I'm going to focus on the things that are an immediate threat at the time, rather than thinking long term. So if chariots come into range to charge, I'll shoot them. Dragon comes into range to charge, I might shoot that. I might just totally ignore the dragon because I never kill them, and it feels like a waste of time. The Doomseekers are going to go out and meet the enemy head on, unless they advance quickly on me, in which case I can hang back a bit and protect my lines. And on top of the hill we've got Quarrelers, we've got the Anvil of Doom, and we've got the Organ Gun to just blast away at the enemy as they advance. And the Grudge Thrower, I've kept a bit of a line of sight through my army there towards the various Chaos units. The only large target is the Dragon. So the Gyrocopters are not going out too far in front. So, who's going first in this one? It's going to be Chaos. So, Apotheosis, which means +1 strength and leadership, which I think is that Gaze of the Gods? You know, that might be the Sorcerer, actually. That might just be a unit champion. I think that is the Sorcerer. It's because they have the same colour cloak, so from this angle it looks more like a Sorcerer, doesn't it? And I don't know if I've got any close-ups of the Forsaken, but they are essentially Chaos Warriors with some extra bits put on them, which I think is a pretty cool idea. They've got, like, I think they're bloodletter heads and hands on some of them. So you can tell they're definitely a different kind of unit. So the enemy moving up as fast as they can. We've got a Pillar of Fire in play already, which we don't like, and some shooting magic missiles, and that has killed 3 Iron Drakes. The Iron Drakes do have the Thane in the unit at the start of the game, because he doesn't want to get targeted by anything, and also he doesn't want to get hit by any Pillars of Fire that move over him. He wants the unit to take the punishment for him. Turn 1 for me. So, the Pillar of Fire doesn't reach me, and I managed to dispel it as well, which is good. So the Pillar of Fire is gone for now. And my shooting takes down 3 Chaos Knights on this side, so there's only 1 left. And on this side, you can see that the Rangers start blasting, and they actually do some wounds. I think they kill a couple out of this unit, perhaps, or maybe they shoot the Wizard. So those 2 are dead, and 3 Knights out of the 4. The rest of the shooting is a bit disappointing. Don't do too much. A lot of failed shooting attacks and a lot of succeeded saves there. So one Doomseeker's gone out on his own. If the enemy want to charge him, that's okay, because he'll just die, and he's cool with that. The other one's hanging back in case the enemy charge into the Iron Drakes. He can then attack whatever attacked them. And if anyone wants to hit the Iron Drakes, then I think this guy is still in the unit with them as well. So there's double stand and shoot potentially there. So even with all that Iron Drake shooting, I barely did anything. Didn't do anything to the chariot. I shot this chariot with everything. The Organ Gun, the Anvil of Doom, lots of Thunderers and Iron Drakes. Just loads of shots piled into a chariot. Did nothing. Turn 2 for Chaos. So the Gaze of the Gods puts Dark Fury onto the Sorcerer, who now gains an additional attack. And they also have Demonic Vessel on the unit, which, as I tilt my head to try and read that, they gain +1 strength and attack. And Demonic Something on this chariot, which gives it +1 movement, toughness, and initiative. It's probably about to fight, so that's not a bad thing. The last Chaos Knight charges into the Thunderers and gets killed by the stand and shoot. The chariot and the dragon get into the Iron Drakes with a double charge, and the stand and shoot does 1 wound to the chariot, which is very sad. And you can see some human hands measuring going on there. So we've got some combat here. The Forsaken have moved up right into my face, so I'm going to have to do something about them. And we've got another Pillar of Fire in play here, which has appeared between all... Or actually, this one might be... This one could be a different vortex. I think this is actually the Chaos Vortex, the one that moves randomly. So, a couple of Thunderers down from shooting attack from this wizard, from magic missiles. And lost a few Iron Drakes. But you can see that the Anvil, because it was able to enchant the armour of the Iron Drakes in the previous turn, they didn't all die. Then they fell back in good order with Stubborn, and the enemy followed up into the Dwarf Warriors. So the plan with the Doomseeker coming to fruition already here. You can see how this is going to work. So the Doomseeker is now going to charge the dragon. This Doomseeker takes some wounds from magic missile but does not die, importantly. You can see those Forsaken over there lost 2. And that was actually from charging the Doomseeker. So the Doomseeker won the combat, they retreated, he does not follow them because he wants to charge the dragon instead. So Doomseeker defeats those Forsaken in combat, which is great for him. Onto my turn, turn 2. So the Chaos Vortex doesn't move, it just stays there. 2 Doomseekers into the dragon. Lots of shooting from the hill. Organ Gun, Anvil, Quarrelers. Blast away, and we take out the Sorcerer on a chariot. They were helped out by the Rangers in that regard as well. So I had to put loads of shots into him. The Gyrocopter gets its flame template on the Forsaken at the front, so that's down to 1. These Thunderers join in with the shooting as well. Lots of shooting. Can't quite kill that last one, unfortunately. The Dwarf Warriors, they got killed by the... Let's see... Yeah, the chariots killed them, and then overran over here. But the dragon is still there fighting the Doomseekers. And they've done a little bit to it, but not too much. It's nice having those as an option to throw into like a monster, because if they do damage, great. If they don't, then they just get eaten, and they don't score the enemy any points. So it's win-win, really. And they always wound big stuff on 4s anyway. So they can do some damage, potentially. So, we've got lots of demonic things being built up on this unit of Chosen. And they declare a charge into the Gyrocopter. And the Forsaken charge into this Doomseeker. Forsaken into the Thunderers. Chariot into the rear of the Iron Drakes. The Forsaken gets in there. These guys get into that Doomseeker. Chariot gets into the Iron Drakes. And, okay, we had an interesting Gyrocopter situation that came up here. Because the Gyrocopter fled from this unit. And it fled all the way over here. But, because I incorrectly read the dice the first time, because I rolled the flee dice, and then for some reason I was thinking, okay, it's the highest dice plus Swift Stride. So I moved it, and it was going to stop there. which meant that this charging unit was going to come into contact with it. So we went through the rules to decide and figure out whether, if you would hit an enemy unit that's fleeing that wasn't your original charge target, whether you can choose to go round and avoid it, or whether you can choose not to, or whether you have to try and avoid it if you've got the movement to try and complete your charge, or whether you're just compelled to go straight forward and touch it and it dies and then you stop. So we went through all that, and then I realised, oh actually, I didn't add on the extra dice, which I should have done for a flea. So I'll get an extra inch, and I bounce over and go all the way over here. So it was fine. But in general, I think what does happen is that you just complete your charge as normal in the direction you were going to go in, and if you hit an enemy unit that has fled in front of you as a result of a flee reaction from a different charge, then you just touch them and they die. That is my understanding. If anyone knows any different, let me know now. And as far as I'm aware, you might have an option to avoid it if you want, because to complete a charge you can do various wheeling. You can do some wheeling in there. So I think you could try to avoid the unit that just entered in front of your charge with a flea, if you want to. That's my understanding of it. Anyone knows different, drop it in the chat or the comments. So, lots of units in combat now. The Chosen have got right up there as well, so they're being very scary. But we've got one turn of good shooting from up here now. None of these units are in threat yet. And the Ironbreakers and King are about primed to get stuck into combat as well. So, the Iron Drakes all die, but the Thane is still alive on 1 wound. So that's nice. And the Thunderers defeat the Forsaken, who falls back, and they are now standing here. The Dragon and the Forsaken kill one of the Doomseekers, but the other one is still alive. And I think the other one then dies as well, actually. I think it got stomped on at the end. Yep, so into my turn 3, because you can see the Dragon's turn to face this way now. So my turn. The Gyrocopter... Hold on, let's see who was there. So it was this guy. The Gyrocopter turns round and rallies. These guys charge. The Thunderers charge into the Forsaken there to get out the way, so the Ironbreakers can charge into the Chosen. And the Gyrocopter just moves over here so it can do some shooting. And I think I managed to scorch off the final Forsaken from that unit that was down to 1. The Organ Gun and the Magnificent Crew managed to score 16 shots and put some wounds onto a chariot. Disappointing. So, the Ironbreakers and the King get into the Chosen, do some good killing, but as you can see, they are now separated via a fall back in good order. And the Thunderers and the Forsaken are kind of blocking the path between them now. So, there we go. That's it for my turn. And you can see that the Rangers are moving up now, trying to get closer to the enemy. Turn 4 for Chaos. So what's going to happen before we go into that? Well, the Dragon has to decide who to charge. The Chariot can probably charge the Grudge Thrower if it wants. And these Chosen, I think they might be drilled actually, the Chosen. Let me have a look. Does it mention that here? I don't see anything about that. They might be drilled though, so they might be able to charge into the Ironbreakers. So turn 4. They get some more buffs off on them, and look at all these building up here. So unnatural quickness, so they gain +1 initiative, which is nice. The Chariot charges the Grudge Thrower. I flee. I choose to flee off the table, hoping that the enemy will also go off the table, which means that it's not a threat for the next turn. Which is a strategy I'm using quite a bit actually with War Machines. If I think they're definitely going to die, they're charged by something where I'm sure it's going to kill them in one go, then just flee and try and take both of you off the table, rather than stand there and die and then let them restrain and reform and turn around and face the rest of your army. Obviously, if you think you can survive, then the stubborn War Machine crew are actually not the worst at surviving. I think they look pretty cool actually, the crew. Although I am driving myself slowly to insanity by painting the Dwarfs, because every time I get a new unit, I keep spending more and more time on each one as I'm learning new beard painting and beard highlighting techniques and getting more and more highlights on every model as I go along. So by the time I finish the army completely, it'll be taking me like 3 months for a model. And I'm not looking forward to that. The organ gun flees from the dragon, who then redirects into the Anvil of Doom. My thinking was he would definitely kill the 3 organ gun crew and then overrun into the anvil anyway. So why not just let him get into the anvil now? Because then the anvil's quite likely to survive a round against him. It's got a decent chance. And the organ gun is then alive for a turn, even though it can't shoot, but it's not dead. So that's my thinking. The Chaos Knights, these 4, decide to be brave. They're going to go back and deal with the Rangers. And if I was them, I would be running off to hide at this point instead, because I don't think that's going to end well for them. But you've got to give credit for them being bold. We've got a Chaos Vortex splatting around, not doing much. And you can see that they have actually gone wider, these Chosen, so that when I charge them... Actually, no, they haven't. That's a lie. These are the 2 remaining Forsaken. So it looks like the unit's gone wider, but that's a different unit there. You can see because they've got freakishly large demon hands on them. Okay, so some damage done to the anvil, but it's hanging in there. And the dragon is actually taking some damage now as well, but he's nowhere near dead. Okay, into my turn 4. And what am I going to do from this position? Well, the Iron Breakers and the King are going to charge into the Chosen, but the way the Forsaken are lined up means I'm probably going to bring them into the combat as well, sadly. And Thunderers still fighting the Forsaken, but I can charge the Gyrocopter into the flank of the Chosen as well, which should help. And then I can try and shoot the Chariot with something. Do I have anything I can shoot it with? Maybe not. Rangers are going to start shooting those Chaos Knights. So, into combat. The Forsaken are killed, and so there are some casualties on both sides here. So I end up scoring 5, my opponent scores 4. You can see on this old school golden combat resolution counter. So the King doing some good work there, chomping through some of them. And so the Forsaken, I think, fled from... Wait a minute. Did I charge into... this unit or this unit? I think it was the Forsaken who failed their leadership because I won the combat and they fled. The Gyrocopter pursued the Forsaken all the way into the woods and caught them. And then the Ironbreakers followed up into the remaining Chosen. I think that's correct. So the Organ Gun is just hanging out there, getting out of the overrun zone for if the Anvil dies to the Dragon next turn, and then all my shooter units turned around to face the Dragon as well. And I've killed a couple of Chaos Knights up there as well, which is nice. The Anvil does go down. The Dragon decides he's just going to turn around and look at the Organ Gun, which is not very friendly of him. Into the enemy turn, Dragon charges, Organ Gun flees, but does not reach the table edge. Because they're dwarves and they don't go very fast, so stops back there, but then does get caught and killed. So, the Chaos Knights are getting closer to the Rangers, which I think is a death wish, but they're continuing down that path. The Forsaken, which were fighting the Thunderers, they finish that job and turn around to face my Iron Breakers now, so I've got one turn to take out that unit, or face that charge. Chariot turns around to face my Quarrelers on the hill now as well. So, we get into a challenge. The King, because he already challenged and killed the champion last turn, so with the challenge he's then able to smash the Sorcerer's face into smithereens with the giant Great Axe. And then win the combat. But, let's see, so we're into my 5 now. Because I don't wipe them out, but it's my turn next, so I've got one turn to finish them off after this. So, turn 5, shooting at the Chariot, get it down to 1 wound, which is the standard Dwarf behaviour. Thunderers take out one of the Forsaken. The Ironbreakers and the King finish off the Chosen and turn round to face the Forsaken. The Rangers slaughter the Chaos Knights, they're all dead. And yeah, that was a very successful turn. Taking out the enemy in the intended way, and the gyrocopter actually charged out of the terrain as well into that combat to help out, which is why I was able to then finish them off. Chaos turn 6. So, not much that they can do really. They're going to try and do a bit of shooting. I think the dragon's got a bit of shooting, but nope. It's not worth them charging in there because the king would probably obliterate them and then just give me more victory points. So they don't do much in that round, and the final score is a 13-7 win to the Dwarves. So by Dwarf standards, that's a pretty darn big win. Normally, if you're going to win with the Dwarves, it's like 11-9 or 12-8. Because you can't chase down and finish off units very well, so a lot of your scoring potential is going to be hiding. And yeah, in this game though, the Chaos Knights obviously decided they wanted to actually participate in a battle instead of hiding, which is how Chaos should be. And everyone kind of got stuck in, really. The dragon obviously caused problems, as you'd expect. I don't really have the tools to deal with dragons in this list, I feel. And chariots are quite tricky as well once they get into the juicy centre of the army. But I think my shooting units did a decent job. They had a really mediocre round 1. And then after that it picked up a bit and managed to kill off the sorcerer on a chariot, which was a big deal. So into the next round, and it's a dwarf off. And potentially inspired by my last tournament where I ran 2 massive units in big long lines. My opponent has brought that kind of list, but it's very different in many ways though. So I'm going to pop open that list now, which is... see, there we go, pulling up the list now. So this is open battle, and it is there's a king. Let's get close-ups actually. So hold on, there's no real close-ups of the army actually, that's sad. Yeah, I'll go through it and then you'll have to see the close-ups during the game, because there's a very nice the white dwarf mounted on Shieldbearers there. That's particularly nicely painted. So there's a king, and on Shieldbearers, there are 2 heroes on Shieldbearers here. One of them is in with the Iron Drakes, which is a massive unit of Iron Drakes, and one of them is behind a massive unit of Rangers. So this is the slight, if you could call it an issue, that I was having with the big Ranger units. They're so big and expensive that if you put them out on their own, the enemy will focus everything on them, kill them, and then hide from the rest of your army. So you kind of have to put them near your own forces and put them in your deployment zone. So you're losing out on the scouting ability, which you're obviously paying points for. So that's my one drawback, I feel, of taking such massive Ranger units. But it's still good. They've got good ballistic skill. They can fight well as well. And you can put heroes in there. So there's a king and a thane. Let's see, the king has the Master Rune of Smiting, which is the D6 wounds one. So I think the king is this one here, behind the Rangers, and I think this one is the BSB, who has the Master Rune of Gromril for the 5-up ward, Rune of Preservation, which is immune to multiple wounds being done to you. They both got full plate armor, and 3 runes of shielding on the king, which I think is the ward save. There's Burlock Daminson, who is around here somewhere. He's in one of the units. And he prevents you taking any penalty from shooting at long range. He does have other benefits, but they don't affect either of these units. You can reroll 1s on Thunderers or Rangers, but he's not in those. There's a unit of Thunderers or Quarrelers, should I say, not Rangers. There are some Quarrelers up there, but he's not in that unit. So just in there to prevent them taking any penalty for shooting at long range. There is the Thane with the handgun. I think it's identical to mine, apart from the fact it's not the BSB. So it's got all the usual stuff that you would have. The 3 runes that give you the loads of shots and never hitting on worse than a 3. There is a runesmith with 3 runes of spell breaking, and he is obviously, when he's in one of these units, puts them up to higher armor bane as well, which is good. Then in core, 25 rangers with all the usual upgrades. And they have Rune of Battle for the extra combat resolution, which is handy for them because they're not close order, so they could use all the extra combat res they can get. They have shields, great weapons, heavy armor, throwing axes, crossbows, full command. 7 Quarrelers with heavy armor, great weapons, and shields as well, so they can actually stand up to a bit of punishment. And then 69 Drakes in rare, with Trollhammer Torpedo, Cinderblast Bombs, Master Rune of Hesitation, which is the one that means you don't count as charging when you hit them, which means that you wouldn't get impact hits, which is quite a big deal. And some of the armies that I was looking at this event benefit greatly from impact hits, so not being able to use them is quite a problem when you're charging into a unit where you want impact hits to do half the damage for you. You're going to lose something on stand and shoot against them. They have high toughness, good armour, they have good weapon skill, Iron Drakes as well, and they can actually hit you back fairly well. They're not too terrible at that, so you really want those impact hits against them, and being denied, so that's quite good. Then there is a Doomseeker, and this Doomseeker is 150 points, so thrice the price of a normal Doomseeker, and with that you get Master Rune of Alaric the Mad, which means he doesn't allow armour saves with his weapon, which is very good. The Rune of Endless Battles, you generate extra attacks for unsaved wounds that you do, and the Rune of Wrath, which, is that the extra attack? May well be the extra attack. So a very powerful Doomseeker, but still just as vulnerable as mine, so any kind of shooting and he'll die. So, where am I going to pick up points in this game? Because this is going to be an issue. I am not going to be able to kill both these big units, probably. That may well be too many models, especially with the 5-up ward. So, I'll probably have to focus and try and bring down one of them. I can kill the Quarrelers, that's not going to be a problem. I also don't want to throw my own units away, because every unit of mine that gets into a firefight against this big wall of guns is a liability, because 7 Thunderers or 8 Thunderers or 11 Quarrelers are going to get killed quite easily by these units. And once the enemy are up on scoring, I then have to go and kill something really big, which means focus firing everything and putting them at risk of return fire, or sending the King and Ironbreakers into that wall of fiery doom, which I really don't want to do, because that would just be a big kill zone, and the Ironbreakers would not stand up to that over a prolonged period of time. So, one thing I could do, of course, is to put them in marching column and just blast them across the table with the anvil, but I don't really want to do that. I don't want to be that close to the enemy with them. I think they would just get shot to bits, so are they just going to stay back? The Rangers are deployed on a flank, so they're just going to be blasting into these Iron Drakes. And if the Iron Drakes move forward, they're then moving into range of my guns, but they want to move forward anyway, so they can shoot. But they're going into the kill zone then. Because as it stands with the Organ Gun and the Anvil of Doom there, in the woods, maybe the enemy would consider just shuffling that way and trying to get away from them over time. Maybe, if you're going for mega points denial, but with Rangers there, that's not really viable. Gyrocopter's going that way as well. My Iron Drakes are all the way out on this flank, because they don't want to get into a shooting match, because they would just lose against either of these two. And there we go, the Doomseekers are just going to run straight down the middle. If the enemy wants to shoot them, that just uses up their shooting for a turn, and they don't score points. Now, here's something that's interesting, because every time I've played units being in woods, I've given myself light cover. Is that incorrect? Are you supposed to get heavy cover, -2 to hit for being entirely or more than 50% inside woods? Someone let me know. Because every game I've ever played, I've played it as light cover, and then in game 6 at the event, my opponent believed that it was heavy cover. And I couldn't find the relevant passage in the rules. So if someone knows that off the top of their head or can give me a page reference, then let me know. Let's see, we've got a comment from Alfonso. Excuse me, I'm new on this hobby. So my friend gave me AOS skeletons, but I tend to play Old World. It looks more. Can I use them in Old World? Can do, thanks. Well, skeletons you could definitely use if you were going to do vampire counts, which are one of the less supported armies, unfortunately, or it depends what your skeletons look like. If you think you could put them in a Tomb King's army. Tomb Kings are definitely very well supported. They were one of the launch factions for the Old World, so you can definitely use skeletons. Yep, so the answer is yes. And because infantry is on a larger base in the Old World than it used to be back in the day, the more dynamic poses of the Age of Sigmar skeletons are actually fine now. They can rank up pretty well without being on those tiny bases anymore, so you should be alright there. Okay, so let's see if I can shoot down some fellow dwarves. Okay, so there's the enemy Doomseeker, who is going towards the Rangers, and I intentionally made sure I was 15 inches away from him, because when he does his Vanguard move of 3 inches, I want to be outside of his declarable charge range in the first turn. So, let's do this. Let's start shooting some dwarves, but the enemy are going first. So, the Iron Drakes move up a bit. They need to get into range to shoot. The Rangers do not, so they start blasting. And they whittle down the organ gun to 1 wound. Now, if I've been playing it incorrectly and I should just put it in the woods and get -2 to hit, then obviously that would make it much more tough to crack. The Gyrocopter on the right flank takes some damage as well, and the Doomseeker is heading towards my Rangers, so I'm going to have to deal with him. Turn 1 for me. So my Quarrelers, who are joined by my Thane out on this flank, start blasting the enemy Quarrelers. Unfortunately, I don't quite kill enough of them soon enough. I think I pop this guy just out the unit so he can shoot a separate target. The Quarrelers shoot. If I'd killed enough of this unit with them, then I could have targeted the Thane with my Thane. Saurus Blood. Woods count as partial cover if you were inside it, page 207. Okay, good. So I've been playing it correctly then. And it was my opponent that was playing it incorrectly in game 6. Right, I shall keep that in mind. So, don't manage to kill enough of them, so then the Thane has to continue shooting them and kills more of them. The Anvil and the Organ Gun start blasting. And look at that. So the Anvil of Doom manages to get 12 hits with its magic missile on the Ironbreakers and kills quite a few of them. So that's great. I do like how shiny these Iron Drakes are, by the way. Very nice. I kill the Doomseeker with my Rangers, as you'd expect, but I'm not scoring points for him. He's just too dangerous to stay alive. He had to go. So, that's a good start, actually. Done some really good damage, and the Iron Drakes actually fell back in good order as a result of all my shooting, so they're even further away from using their shooting now. You can see I used the Anvil to enchant with its enchantment on these Thunderers, because I think they're going to get shots, potentially. Enemy turn 2. So the King is making his way around the back. I think he's not quite decided which unit to join yet, because he doesn't want to go into the Rangers, because he's going to limit how many of them can shoot. They're very nicely painted, these Dwarfs, by the way. It's my kind of nice, bold colour scheme as well. It's not quite as wild as my colour scheme, where I've got the blue and the red as well going on, with 2 bright colours. But you still get credit. Iron Drakes turn round, because they are concerned, I think, about my Rangers. And also there's a Gyrocopter over there as well. So the enemy Rangers start blasting, and they finish off the Organ Gun, which is sad, but they've got to kill something. The enemy Thane drops out and hides behind the hill, so I can't gun him down, which is a good idea. So this is what I've lost so far. Organ Gun, Gyrocopter. So I have to do some killing now. This Gyrocopter takes some wounds from the Iron Drake, so he's going to have to hide and not participate in the game now, which is sad. And again, anyone who maybe has any input into the old world rules, give us a scoring system that doesn't incentivize hiding heavily damaged units. Let us go in for glorious final death throws and write some historic moments rather than just having to go, oh, I'm almost dead, guess I better hide here, so it doesn't count. Turn 2 for me. So, the Quarrelers and the Thane finish off the enemy Quarrelers on the hill, so I'm getting some points there. Doomseeker gets right in the face of the Rangers, and the other one gets right into the flank facing of the Iron Drakes. The Rangers have a go at shooting them, and whittled them down a bit more, so there's not too many of them left now. Thunderers come down off the hill, and I'm moving my Iron Drakes in as well. I'm just getting everything else into a position so they can actually threaten, because I smell blood with this unit here, and I could potentially wipe them out. And if I can kill that unit, that would almost certainly win me the game. So, turn 3 for the enemy. What are these Iron Drakes going to do? Are they going to turn around and shoot the Doomseeker? Are they going to try and shoot the Rangers? They're not in range to do too much to them yet. So, they move up that way. In fact, actually, I think they changed their mind in a minute. So, the enemy Rangers shoot and don't do too much here. They do kill some Thunderers, but that's it. So initially, you can see at the last turn, I'd buffed up the armour of my Thunderers. And I initially forgot that I'd done that and took off the whole unit and then realised, oh, actually, I can re-roll my saves. So then because I thought it was only the small buff that I'd given them. But actually, no, it was the super duper extra buffed up armour save with the re-roll. So I re-rolled the saves and 3 of them actually lived. So they're okay. The Doomseeker is dead that was being threatened by the Iron Drakes, which is okay because it's now not giving away points. Into my turn, so I'm going to keep shooting the Iron Drakes. I'm going to keep doing something with this Doomseeker. I don't know whether I'm going to charge in though, because he would just die from stand and shoot. And I could just get into an annoying position with him. So let's see what I come up with. So, the Quarrelers and the Thane shoot down some of the enemy rangers, but not too many. And I put my Doomseeker over here, right next to them. So, if they want to shoot him on their turn, that's going to be kind of a waste, but I'll have to charge them at some point. But really what I want to do is for them to not charge me, and for me to move here so I can charge the Thane instead, because I would rather go after him. Then the Anvil buffed up itself this time, because I feel like it's going to start getting shot now. So it's got the enchantment on its armour now. The Rangers do a bit of shooting. You can see the Iron Drakes are slowly being whittled there. Turn 4 for the enemy. So the Iron Drakes come forward again in this direction. The Rangers start shooting. They do a little bit of damage to the Anvil, but not much. And yeah, there we go. Not much of a turn, but straight into my turn. So the Thane kills a few more Rangers, not too much though. There's not much else for him to shoot at over here. The Doomseeker jumps over, and there he is. He's just hiding behind the enemy now. So if he charges them, he's not going to have stand and shoot against him. So he's going to be able to charge them and actually hurt them. And with his D3 plus 1 impact hits, 2d3 attacks, he could actually win a combat against them. And if he does, that would be quite scary for them. So my Rangers keep shooting away, and look at this. Got the Iron Drakes down to just 3 models and a Runesmith and the BSB. So they've still got their ward save, but all my shooting is actually doing well here. So I think I'm going to be able to finish off these Iron Drakes. I've got 2 turns of shooting left, and I'm closing in on them. Stone Thrower misfired this turn, but nothing bad came as a result of that, so it's going to be back to normal next turn. Turn 5 for the enemy Dwarves. The Iron Drakes are getting in position for them to do some shooting, probably the Anvil of Doom. And they don't really accomplish much. You can see that my Thunderers, by the way, are hiding there now to preserve their points. The Rangers move away from the Doomseeker, so they march, so they're not shooting this turn. So I think they realise that they're going to survive the game, probably. The King moves over here as well to threaten the Doomseeker, I think, if he decides to charge in there. Turn 5 for me. Direct rock hit onto the Runesmith, and he's dead. So a rock lands right on the Runesmith's head, murders him. And the reason that's important is because I've got rid of those auto-dispel runes now. Because they'd moved up so that they were within range to use the auto-dispels on my Anvil. So I really needed to get that Runesmith dead so I can then magic missile the Iron Drakes to finish them off. However, it sounds like a great plan. You roll 11 for the casting roll, and then my opponent went and rolled a double 6 on the Fated Dispel. Wow, 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 wow. So we did have to check the rules, because I was thinking, wait a minute, can you get a double 6 unstoppable Dispel with a Fated? And then yes, you can. So, there we go. The Doomseeker charges in there, kills maybe 1 Ranger, loses combat, bounces off. So, turn 6 for the enemy. So I've still only got 1 turn to kill 3 Iron Drakes, but at least the Runesmith protecting them is dead now. So I'm quite confident with 1 round I can finish them off. Turn 6 for the enemy. The Thane pops out of this unit because the way he was positioned, I could have actually hit him when I charged in, which I think I could have done in the previous turn as well, actually. But I think I forgot he was there. So I could have put all my attacks into the Thane. It didn't matter anyway because I failed to do it much in the combat anyway. So because of my dice rolls, I wouldn't have killed him regardless. So the mistake was unpunished. So they move him out, and so now he can't be charged by the Doomseeker because he can't see him. But I can shoot the Thane now, potentially, with some of these Thunderers. My Thane is struggling to get in position to contribute to the game much on this side, because he was shooting Rangers for the whole time, and I'm thinking I should have just given up on that plan, because the first couple of times didn't do enough casualties, so I should have just moved in this way so he could contribute to killing the one unit that I can definitely kill. My turn 6. So the way the game's looking, if I can kill 3 Iron Drakes, then I win the game. If I do not kill 3 Iron Drakes, it's most likely heading for a draw. If I can kill that Thane, I might win the game, or that might also take it to a draw. If my Doomseeker gets himself killed, that might be enough for me to win the game. If my Doomseeker manages to kill off this unit, that would definitely win me the game. So let's find out. The Anvil of Doom fails because the Iron Drakes make 3, I think it was 3 6+ armor saves. Well then. The Doomseeker does not manage to kill anybody. So, the Iron Drakes live. No one else managed to hit them successfully. And let me pull up that final score. So, it's a draw. And I did some maths and worked out that if the Doomseeker had got himself killed at any point during the game, then I would have won the game. Because of the points I got for the Iron Drakes being reduced to 25%, that was a decent number of points, and I killed the Quarrelers and the Runesmith. So that was quite a big score as well, the Runesmith dying. Because he had some very expensive upgrades on him. He had the 3 runes of spellbreaking, so that's 75 points of upgrades on him. So, with all that added up, if this Doomseeker had died, I would have won the game. So if I'd not been greedy with him and thought I could get round and be annoying with the Doomseeker, if I'd just thrown him in there, eaten the stand and shoot, and died, then I would have won. Wow, wow, wow. But then my opponent could have also said, for example, that if my, let's see, if my first round of shooting with the Anvil hadn't done 12 hits onto the Iron Drakes, they wouldn't have been put in such a terrible position to begin with, and then maybe they could have done something in the game. But then also there was the 6/6 Dispel as well, on the Fated Dispel that stopped the magic missile from hitting them 2 turns in a row. And then the next turn they just made their armor saves. So it's a draw, which is the usual Dwarf versus Dwarf result. Barely anything dies, and it's a draw. It's kind of what you expect from Dwarf Civil War. Then, into the next round, Command and Control. So the centre. Hold the centre, score some points, and it's High Elves. And let's pull up that list now. We're on to day 2 now. Into game 4. So, let's see. Here we go. High Elves. We have got a Prince on a Star Dragon with Seed of Rebirth, Opal Amulet, Headsman's Axe, Blood of Calador, Full Plate, and Shield. So let's get some close-ups of, there's the dragon there. So it's a nice old school classic Warhammer Fantasy dragon, which is what we like to see. We like to see the old school stuff. For those people who were able to either get it at the time and held on to it, or are able to pay ridiculous eBay prices, or when things come back on made to order, I like to see the old classic. Mostly 90s stuff is the era that I grew up with. The mid-90s stuff is the aspirational period of Games Workshop for me, when I used to read White Dwarf, occasionally even at school because I was so cool. Reading White Dwarf and looking at the huge armies in there and the big battle layouts that they had. And seeing models like this, which I never actually owned. I did own the old Wyvern, the old Orc Azhag the Slaughterer. Not the one with the small wings, the one with the big plastic wings was the one I had. And what else did I have that was a significant model? I had lots of the old Chaos heroes, like Arbol the Undefeated. Never got Egrim Van Horstman, So that's the main one. I'm sad that they haven't brought back on Made to Order, because I would definitely buy that, even if I don't have a Chaos Warriors army. I'd probably get a Chaos Warriors army just to feel that, to be honest. So, what else have we got in this list? We've got an Archmage on a Sky Cutter. So an Archmage on a Flying Chariot, which is a level 4 wizard with battle magic, so we're going to see Pillar of Fire, probably. And if you're thinking that we're seeing too much Pillar of Fire, I think the community would agree with you in general, and that that's just too good compared to all the other spells in the game. Or at least the other spells that certain armies can take. There are some other things that are equally annoying to deal with. Then we've got, in core, 6 Silver Helms and 5 Illyrian Reavers. So the Silver Helms are out on this flank. Those are the elite cavalry. I think, no, actually, those are the Dragon Princes. Yeah, those are the Dragon Princes. Silver Helms are this unit, and then Illyrian Reavers, I think, are these guys. That's got to be right, hasn't it? Yeah, Reavers must be the... Yeah, they're the scouting ones. That's why they're out in front. So the Silver Helms are this unit here. Then we've got 4 units of 5 archers, which I'm thinking there's going to be some easy points to shoot down, but not going to get me a lot of points. And 6 Dragon Princes, which are over there. They're very powerful, but again, I see a small number of knights, and I think, that's going to be a juicy target for all my shooting, the kind of thing that I can get some nice points for. The backwards running Illyrian Reaver. Yes, this one facing the wrong way. And this one, actually. But they are skirmishers, so they don't care for such things. Then finally, we've got 8 Sisters of Avalorn, which are a really good shooting unit hiding in the woods. Skirmishers. They're going to be difficult for me to shoot. And they've got a Ruby Ring of Ruin on them as well for some extra magical offensive output. Turn 1 goes to me. So what's my plan here? Let me go back to the wide shot, actually, and show you. So I've got my Iron Breakers and Iron Drakes in the middle around the terrain, so the Iron Breakers are hoping to contest that. Most High Elf lists have more speed than this, to be honest. This is quite a slow High Elf list, which is weird considering it's got flyers and it's got loads of cavalry. But compared to some of the lists I've seen, it would be harsh to call it the worst game. I think the worst example of the old world's treatment of big monsters was in a game I had against High Elves, where it was 2 dragons and a load of cavalry, and the 2 dragons were less than half the army's points, and they decided, hey, you know what, we can take on 2,000 points of dwarves on our own, so the rest of you guys just hide in the corner because you're a liability, and if you get killed, you're just giving up points. So you hide, us 2 dragons will just go and kill all the dwarves. And they pretty much did. They killed most of my army on their own. So I think big monsters are maybe too good. Infantry is obviously horribly underpowered at the moment and doesn't have much of a role, especially fighting infantry in most armies. There are some exceptions. And units like cavalry, often you'll come up against an enemy with a gun line and think, well, what's the point me even existing? If you're not going to score a load of points for killing me, then maybe I'll be used in some role, like moving up as a distraction or to screen out some of my other units. But instead, because all you're doing is dying and giving up points, then what's the point? You might as well just hide in the corner. So scoring should probably be changed, so that isn't an issue. Okay, so we've got Doomseeker there, just going to be being annoying, going towards the enemy. Bridge Thrower has got a good view of the enemy, and I've given the Anvil a peephole through the skirmishing rangers. So, this might look like a dangerous move, because we've got this cavalry unit here, but because they're scouts, they can't actually charge me turn 1. Because if you charge into the flank of a skirmishing unit, anyone that can't form up behind the rest of them drop dead immediately. Which is a really badly implemented rule, I think. I can see what the intent is, because you don't want units to not be able to reach the position that you want them to be in, and you don't want them to break any kind of coherency rules, so in that case just get rid of them. It's nice and clean and easy, but it feels pretty bad. So with dwarves in particular, now when I do this setup in skirmish mode, I'm under the impression because I've never actually used them this way before since this ruling came in, which is where they just get deleted if they can't form up behind them. I think it was a ruling anyway, or at least people's understanding of the way the rule works. So, dwarves can only move 3 inches to find their spot in the back rank, which means that if this unit got charged here, half of them would just die immediately without any attacks. So, my understanding was that you could move like a maneuver, which is you can't move more than double your movement to find the spot in the back ranks. So that's why I've got them this way, because I'm under the assumption that they'd be able to move 6 inches rather than 3. And I'm also not worried about a flank charge there because they can't charge me turn 1. So that's why I've got them positioned in this way. Over on that side, Gyrocopter is just going to go and annoy the enemy archers. I'm going to try and shoot those archers and try and contest the centre to get the important points there. Make sure my king preferably doesn't die, and keep him in there with the Iron Breakers. Iron Drakes guarding this area as well in case anyone wants to come down here and fight the king. If they don't, they can go chasing an organ gun, but that's going to murder some knights hopefully. And if the dragon goes all the way over down there to fight an organ gun on its own, I'm not too disappointed with that, because if it charges me I can always flee straight off the table, and I can live with that, and then I'll be able to maybe charge it with a Doomseeker. We'll see. I'm not confident in killing dragons though. So, these guys are impetuous, the dragon princes, and the dragon lord, or the dragon, what's he called? He is a prince, so he's technically a dragon prince, but he's actually on a dragon. He doesn't just wear a dragon helmet, but actually rides on a horse. So, I feel like it's false advertising calling these guys dragon princes. I'm sure there's some reason in the lore that they get to wear the dragon's hat. So, here we go. I get turn 1. Doomseeker moving up. Thunderer's moving up. The reason they're moving up isn't so they can shoot, it's so they can provide a screen for my Thane, who wants to move up, get conveyed by the anvil to move again, and then shoot something. Because this unit here, what are they called again? The Sisters of Avalorn, they are elusive, so if you shoot them, they can fall back in good order and hide. So I don't want to shoot them from too far away. So I do some shooting with my various ranged attacks. Kill some of the Silverhelm cavalry there. Take down one of the Illyrian Reavers. And yeah, not too great round from the organ gun, but it's unreliable. So if you want reliable organ guns, you have to take engineers with them. And even then, it's not that reliable, because you're usually shooting at long range, hitting on 5s. So with an engineer, what's the number of shots you think you can reliably get? 8? Maybe 10? So at long range, you're not getting that many hits with it. But you're taking it for that one time when you roll the big numbers, and it overperforms, because it's just wild when it does that. So the Gyrocopter has moved out in front there. The reason for that is because I want the Dragon Princes to have to charge me, because they're so far away that the only way they would make it into another one of these units is if they roll a 6 on the charge and then also a 6 on their swift stride. So I want them to try and charge me and just get stuck out in no man's land, and then I can shoot them because they're out in the open. Because as it stands at the moment, I was thinking I'd shoot down this unit that we're covering, and then maybe they would think about running off and hiding. So the reason I've put it here is so they have to charge me and end up here, so I can then attack them. So we'll see if that works out for the best or not. Turn 1 for the enemy. Gyrocopter has Curse of Arrow Attraction cast on it, so it's going to be easier to shoot it. Well, the Gyrocopter flees, and remember that situation I told you about where they would have to roll a 6 followed by a 6 on the swift stride? Yeah. So the Dragon Princes made it into the Rangers, and let me go back and show you. So they end up here. Now what my opponent would have loved to have done is just touch the end of my unit there, which means that they would then, most of the unit would just die because they can't reach the position. However, because they rolled that, actually because they were going past this unit here to get there, then they ended up, the angle they were going at meant they needed an obscenely high amount, and they ended up touching the unit somewhere around the middle. So, only a couple of them end up dying from not being able to meet their spot in the back of the unit, which I thought was going to be 0, because I thought you could do 6 inches rather than 3. But then I learned, actually, it's only 3, so that's way worse. So I think running these guys as skirmishers is wildly risky for that reason. So they do get in against the odds, but only 3 of them, because in order to make the charge, they had to go only 3 wide with their, I think they're drilled. So that's why they were compelled to make the charge, because they have the rules that allow them to physically fit past that unit. So we've got the, did I even mention the Swordmasters? I think they have a ward save against magic missiles, so the anvil is not going to be good against them. So they're heading towards the central scoring objective. And everyone else, the dragon's hiding behind this building because you don't want to get shot to death, or charged by a Doomseeker, making sure he's out of sight there. And we've got a pillar of fire on the table. Then we've got some casualties dished out from various shooting sources onto the Thunderers. A couple of them drop. And a wound onto a Doomseeker. So he's still alive after the shooting from them. And then he's finished off by the archers on the hill. The Dragon Princes, they don't do much actually. They kill a ranger. They lose at least 1 in retaliation. 2 they lose actually. And then they lose the combat and fall back. So that's quite good. Rangers. Yeah, the Dragon Princes just failed horribly there. But to be fair, it was only 3 of them that were making contact anyway. Into my turn. So, Quarrelers and Thunderers start blasting and finish off some archers there. You can see the other unit has been heavily whittled down because I moved the gyrocopter behind and dropped a big fat flame template on them. So that was fun. The Anvil of Doom killed some of the Silver Helms who are hiding around the building. The Rangers back away from the Dragon Princes so everyone could shoot at them. And that didn't quite go to plan because the Iron Drakes, the Organ Gun, and what else? I've got the Thane down here as well. All of them were shooting at the Dragon Princes and I didn't kill a single one. Despite the torpedo, all the Drake guns, the Organ Gun, nothing. They just made a few armor saves, none of them died. So then I thought, okay, I've only got the Stone Thrower left. It's probably not the ideal target, but let's go. Let's drop it on their heads. And the Rock Thrower killed 2 of them. Okay. I'll take it. So they're down to just 2. So they're still a threat. And yeah, good job, Grudge Thrower. Turn 2 for the enemy. So the Pillar of Fire moves over some Thunderers, doesn't do too much, thankfully. You can see I've got my Thane in the unit with the Iron Breakers now, because the Pillar of Fire is coming this way and I don't want to get pillared of fire to death. Curse of Arrow Attraction on a Gyrocopter seems to be the play. The remaining cavalry go into my Rangers. And, okay, here's another interesting situation. So let's look at how they're arranged here. So when they go in, what my opponent wanted to do was to hit this end of the unit. So that then, like maybe these 2 would fail to land where they're supposed to and they would just die and just evaporate. However, because you have to maximize when you charge, they actually have to go like there. So everybody's fine. We've got a dragon charging a Doomseeker. So it originally wanted to charge someone else, but I fled. And who was there? Let me go back and have a look a sec. So it originally charged the Thunderers. They fled from the dragon, who then redirected the charge into the Doomseeker. The Doomseeker tries to overrun into my Iron Breakers, but comes up about 2 or 3 millimeters short. So that's good for me. And I can now charge the dragon if I want with this unit and get the king into a challenge with him. So we'll see how that goes. That's going to be fun. The Dragon Princes do charge into the Rangers again, fail again, and die. Okay, so the shooting output of my entire army barely scratches them. They charge into a few Rangers, get punched with an axe, and just get the heads chopped off immediately. So fun times for the Rangers. So it's going okay so far. You can see my Thunderers fleeing there. Pillar of Fire, poised. My turn 3. So, my shooting on the right flank finishes off the unit of archers that were hanging out there, and I'm not shooting at the Sisters of Avalorn because they're skirmishers and they're in the woods, so they're going to be very difficult to hit. We've got a challenge with the King on Shieldbearers and the Dragon. I don't really do anything to him, sadly, because he's got the usual, like, 8 different saves stacked up one after the other, which is the standard dragon manoeuvre in the old world at the moment, and then he does a couple of wounds to me in retaliation, which I can live with. And I think he passes his leadership test, because I win the combat because I've got a banner and a BSB and a close order unit and a rank in there as well. My shooting on the left side. Well, you can see the gyrocopter is mopping up archers quite nicely. Splats into one unit. And I've also shot down whatever else was here. I think there were some other archers that were finished off as well. Everyone else is hiding there, so I don't have any great shots at the moment, so I'm going to have to turn around and start facing where the action is now, which is this dragon. Turn 3 for the enemy. We've got the Pillar of Fire making its way over here. And we've got the Swordmasters, who go into marching column, so they can get closer. So we've got one turn to start blasting them to death before they get into the action. And, well, this is a humorous turn of events. So my king fails all his armor saves and gets killed by the dragon. But the dragon then loses the combat and runs away with a failed leadership test. So I had, let's see, I had a BSB, I had a banner, a close order unit, a rank. I think I may have done 1 wound to the dragon this time. And I have a musician. So I think that's why I was able to win the combat. And then failed the leadership, fled, but of course I can't pursue very far because there's a building there, so I just splat straight into it. So you can see my king was fighting with the boosted armor save from the anvil this whole time as well. And unfortunately, got himself killed. Just didn't roll very well. Yeah, so he's on a 3-up save, re-rolling failed saves, and that did not save him. Wow, so he's dead. But I'm in a good position to secure or prevent the enemy from scoring the central building anyway. Gyrocopter finishes off the archers on the hill, so mopped up all the chaff. Onto my turn. So I blast down loads of Swordmasters, but not quite the full unit. I've got my Thane involved, I've got my Quarrelers, I've got loads of Thunderers still in there. Iron Drakes move this way to where the action is. Thane popped out of the unit. The Pillar of Fire almost reaches the anvil, not quite yet. Turn 4 for the enemy, so we've got the Sky Cutter and the Swordmasters into the Thunderers. And the dragon is just getting in position ready to strike at the Ironbreakers in the next turn. And the final surviving Thunderer fled through the Quarrelers, and the chariot overruns into them. And the Swordmasters do the same. So there's one Thunderer alive, so he's probably not going to rally. But he is a dwarf, so he's very slow at fleeing, so he might not make it to the edge. We'll see. Turn 5 for me, and all the Quarrelers get slaughtered. The Ironbreakers come up with the only manoeuvre they can, which is, because they're drilled, they're able to... I think it's just because they can do a reform, and they change their ranks a bit, so they're facing that way. And the Thane is just hiding behind them. He couldn't join the unit because then they wouldn't have been able to get into a better position. So I think this is the best setup I can do. And they're just going to be prepared to maybe get charged by a dragon, but I've got a champion to challenge him out for 1 turn, and I'm stubborn and I haven't lost a round of combat yet. So they're going to be alright for at least a turn. Turn 5 for the enemy. The Sky Cutter chases down the remaining... Let's see who was over there. I think he chases down, or he runs off the table maybe last turn actually. So the dragon goes into the Ironbreakers, kills the champion, they fall back in good order, he goes over into the Thane. Into my turn 6, what am I going to do? I'm going to move the Ironbreakers backwards, they can go backwards 2 inches, then the Gyrocopter can land there, which means that the dragon, if it kills the Thane, will only overrun into the gyrocopter in the last turn and not into the Ironbreakers. So it'll kill those 2 units instead of the more expensive Ironbreakers. So there we go, there's that little setup. The Thane gets killed, overrun into the gyrocopter, but there's only 1 turn left, so the Ironbreakers are safe. Would have been better if they had the king in there with them. Everything else has just been shuffling around looking for shots because there's not really anything to shoot on this side. We've killed lots of the enemy here. Throw a rock that doesn't manage to hit anyone that's hiding behind these woods. You can see the enemy units that are partially alive are running off to hide in the corner, as you'd expect, based on the old world scoring system. And there you go, that's the end of the game. So, what's left? All this lot. I think he's dead. So there are some Swordmasters still alive down in the corner as well. So I haven't actually killed that many units. I've killed a lot of models, I've killed a lot of crummy archers, but is it that many points? Let's have a look at the scoring. So, because of the loss of the king, which is significant because you get a bonus 100 points for that, and the BSB, which also gives you a bonus, then it turns into a 12-8 loss, which is about within the window of what you expect. So if it weren't for the... I think it's kind of an anomaly that the king gets killed, but then this guy somehow flees. That was just a really weird situation. So you'd probably expect about that much stuff to die as a result of the dragon fighting, but maybe not those units specifically. A lot of the softer targets didn't really get attacked in this game, which is rare, so it ended up being very close. I killed all the enemy soft targets, but again, as usual, can't hurt the big stuff, just don't have anything to get through it. And anything that I do whittle down can run away and hide, and I can't do anything about it. Let's have a look at some of the armies then. So this is before the final round, and I went round and took some photos of all the armies that were laid out for the best army voting, and I'll try and remember which one won when we get to it. So we've got Chaos Warriors. This is the army that I faced. That's mostly the battalion box, with some extra bits thrown on, I think. Then we've got some Dark Elves with lots of cavalry, lots of skirmish cavalry, and I think this is the army that actually won the event. So we've got a couple of dragons in there, got some cavalry, and skirmish infantry. I'm also, at some point, it might end up going to this army, but one of them's going to get my official Andy's This Is a Real Army award. So whichever one looks the most like a real army that you would see in the artwork or in the battle scenes they do in the books or on the website or in magazines. So this looks quite army-like actually, doesn't it? We've got some big blocks of infantry, some small infantry, varied units, some support, a couple of dragons. So the 2 dragons is probably the only thing that stops it looking super duper like a standard army. If it had just 1 dragon and another big block of infantry as well, that would be extra army-like, but it's a nice variety. And obviously, very nicely painted. I think this one actually won the coolest army award. I think. So anyone who was there, let me know if that's wrong. But obviously it's very nice, as you can see. We've got the Dwarves that I had that draw against. And you can see there's a nice close-up of the white dwarf there. So that's very nicely painted. I especially like the white beard. And I think it's the contrast of the colour. Not a contrast as in contrast paint. It's the darkness in the recesses of the white that gives it... It's almost like a comic sort of quality. Not comical, but comic as in like animated, like a drawing. So I think that's very cool. And it makes me question the way I paint my own white beards, actually. Very good. I do think my bright and bold beard colours do look nice though, but I think this is very stylish. We've got some orc nomadic warg with loads of boar cavalry. This would have been a fun one to face with my gun line. Spicy. We have got some... This has got to be Dark Elves, surely? Yeah, these look like some nice cold ones there. Can't tell what every unit is, but very spicy, very dark, very elfy. Dinosaurs, can't go wrong with that. we've got what appears to be some ghost dwarfs. And initially I thought that they were purely the ghost colour, but I actually see there is something going on with the eyeballs as well, so that's a nice touch. I think communities generally across the years, because you do see armies like this pop up now and then where it's like a full ghost army. Some people think it's the coolest thing ever, and then you see other people that think it's just pathetic and lazy and it's not a real painted army. But it meets the three colours that people usually say is the minimum. It's got the eyes done as well. So, where do you fall down, community, watching this video? What do you think about ghost armies? Because I'm not going to say it's lazy, because I've actually got some units in my undead halfling army for Kings of War that are painted as ghosts. So I've done it myself. So I'm not going to complain about it. What do you think? Do you fall down on the side of cool or not cool? Then we have got... Now, this definitely got one of my votes, because... Remember who I was talking about earlier? We've got Van Horstman himself. The Chaos Sorcerer on Two-Headed Dragon of Doom. One of my favourite models that I never owned, and I'm hoping to get it one day. Also, we've got some 90s style Dragon Ogres in there as well, which is another thing I like to see. My favourite models. So if I was going to get a Chaos Warriors army, I'd get him, and I'd get loads of metal 90s Dragon Ogres. I don't know what else I would add, because I'm not a huge fan of the current plastic Chaos Warriors. So, These guys, actually, are clearly the plastics from my era of Chaos Warrior, which is the late 90s, early 2000s style. So that's what we like to see. Yeah, so this is definitely one of the ones that got my vote for coolest army, because it features so many of the models that I like. Then we've got some more Tomb Kings. Very stylish. A bit more variety of the colour scheme than you usually see from Tomb Kings. Kind of the dark bone there. Unless someone tells me it's not finished, in which case I'll retract my statement. Very stylish. We've got some Bretonians, they're always cool, with the variety of heraldry and colour schemes. Skaven. Very Skaven-y. Verminous. More Bretonians. Again, very nice and colourful. With lots of Pegasus Knights in there as well. Trebuchet. We've got some more Tomb Kings with two big bone dragons, so very popular. Or actually, no, is this vampire counts? Yeah, those have got to be zombie dragons or terrorgeists, haven't they? Because we've got a mortis engine in there, so we've got vampire counts here. Let's see, Giovanni says, I don't like the army. It's cool if you do it for a diorama, but not an army. Talking about the ghosts. Yes, that's a valid viewpoint. Some people don't like it. I've never seen an army style that so consistently divided the community over the years. I'm trying to think if there's any other examples. Other ones would be like heavy proxy armies that are made in kind of a funny way. You know, like you do pink Space Marines that are not actual Space Marines, but I don't know, like My Little Ponies or something. So they'll be painted, and painted really well, but some people think it's the coolest thing on earth, and some people think it's making a joke of the hobby. I think that might be the only kind of thing that's more divisive than the ghost armies. We've got some more dwarves. So, this is an interesting list with some scout gyrocopters, a couple of those in there. This is an engineer list, and some engineer sappers. There's some cannons, there's bolt throwers, organ guns, miners. Very cool. And this player, actually, I don't know if the player is in the chat or in the comments at all, but did say that lots of my videos were watched in the lead up to the tournament to pick up some dwarf tactical tips. So hopefully they paid off. Very stylish dwarves there. Then we've got some Empire with a big griffin. And on to the next game. So in the final round we've got High Elves again. So let me pull up the list. So it's open battle, and there are some similarities between the lists. Oh, is that Daredevil? Is that your army in the chat there? let's go back and look at it. Is this your army we're looking at right here? So you'll have to let me know precisely which of my red-hot, sizzling tactical tips you were able to employ that led you to victory, that somehow haven't led me to victory. So, High Elves, we have got... Let's have a look here. So we've got a dragon again, but we don't have a second dragon. So, haven't faced the old double dragon High Elf this time. It is... Let's have a look. It's a prince with shield. It's pure of heart, apparently. Dragon Helm, Seed of Rebirth, Talisman of Protection, all the good stuff to give it a million different saves, which, as we know, should be removed from the game. Shouldn't be allowed to have 3 different saves. Then we've got an Archmage who is on a barded elven steed, and that's the Archmage right there. And we've got... who else? We've got a Sky Cutter, which is... Actually, we've got multiple Sky Cutters, but one of them has... Does one of them have a hero on it? Let's see, one of them's got a Noble on a Sky Cutter. There we go. So there's a Noble on a Sky Cutter, there is an Archmage on a horse, and there's a Prince on a dragon. Amongst there somewhere. Then we've got 10 archers, 10 archers, 10 archers. Some on the hill, some in the woods, and some... Where's the rest of them? Oh, I think they're all the way on the right. Then we've got 5 silver helms, and 5 more silver helms. So 5 silver helm units, which are at the back there. Okay, then we've got a chariot, and a chariot. So 3 normal chariots. And then... in rare, there are 3 more Lothan Sky Cutters. So lots of chariots, and a dragon, and cavalry. So lots of speed, but also things that I can kill with 1 round of shooting from 1 unit with a bit of luck, because they only have about 4 wounds, most of them. So other than the dragon and the hero on a chariot, the rest of them could potentially be succulent, juicy snacks. So you can see I've got my Iron Drakes in the middle. And because I didn't know where most of this stuff was going during deployment, so I couldn't commit too much. I didn't want to corner camp because it's High Elves, and let's see. There is a wizard with high magic. I'm not sure if there's another wizard in there at all. Don't think so. So we don't corner camp, especially in the last game of a tournament. We're going to have an actual battle. It's the last game and I'm clearly not going to win the event, so what would corner camping achieve other than potentially lead to not having a game? So nobody wants to see that. So we're going to try and get a fight going. So I've put my anvil and the organ gun in the middle, so they're going to start blasting anyone that's in the centre. On the flank, we've got rangers out in front, we've got doom seekers, we've got thunderers, we've got my thane, we've got quarrelers, we've got the grudge thrower on the hill. We've got a gyrocopter there to stop people overrunning into the grudge thrower, potentially. And hopefully, all this shooting and the Doom Seekers is a deterrent, so maybe people will go into the middle and get shot by the organ gun and the anvil and the Iron Drakes instead. Let's see if that works out. So, turn 1, and I get to go first, so let's start blasting. Pops out the unit there with the Thane. Doom Seeker moves up behind the building to hide. If anyone wants to come over here, he'll have a good charge of them. The King and the Ironbreakers are going that way a bit, thinking that the enemy might commit into this flank. And I managed to kill one of the Skycutters. And then the Thunderers on the right flank shoot down an archer, which isn't much. That guy's dead though, so that's the dead pile. Killed one Skycutter already. My Gyrocopter, which vanguarded up, charged one of the chariots and won the combat, so that's nice. Pushed it back and is now wedged in between those archers. So, not bad. Killed one of the chariots in the first turn, can't argue with that. Would have liked to have killed more than that, but the organ gun didn't manage to do much this turn. I think it rolled 2 misfires actually, the organ gun, but thankfully did not blow up and didn't even suffer any ill effects, so he's going to be alright. Yeah, so not having an engineer does hit you occasionally. The anvil also didn't really do anything. I was trying to take out these 2 chariots as well. So if I could have organ gunned that one off, or Trollhammer torpedoed as well, and then Anvil magic missile that one, and taken out 3, I would have been feeling very confident, but just 1 so far. Turn 1 for the High Elves. So, this unit has been joined by the wizard, and they are now ethereal. So that's going to be a pain for me. I do have some magical attacks that were sprinkled throughout the army to deal with the Green Knight in case I faced that, but it's only on the Anvil and the King. All the archers decide they're going to flank charge the Gyrocopter, which is a sight I never thought I would see in a game of Warhammer. The dragon sits right in front of my army and says, "What are you going to do about it, mate?" And the chariots move up as well, ready to strike. So I'm just going to ignore the dragon pretty much. I'm going to charge it with a Doomseeker, but I'm not going to shoot at it, because I think that's just a waste of time. With all the saves, I might as well shoot at things I can actually kill by the end of the game. Because even if I get 8 wounds on it, it could theoretically just go and hide anyway. And that's 8 wounds. That is an obscene number of wounds. I think that might be one of the issues with the big flyers, with heroes on them. I think they just have too many wounds. I would say Dwarf on Shieldbearers has too many wounds as well. I think the way the old world is, where even like the most elite cavalry in the whole game end up with 1 wound each, things like Grail Knights are stuck on 1 wound, and then you've got a Dwarf King, who because he's sitting on top of a shield, suddenly gets 6 wounds. I think that's a bit obscene. I think dragons with 9 wounds is too much. So you don't even need to give War Machines any extra damage, with a lot of them stuck on D3 and D3 plus 1, just take a couple of wounds off the big stuff. Just level out wounds in general, and while you're at it, on the subject of Grail Knights, I don't know why they don't have 2 wounds. Ridiculous. Any super elite cavalry for someone's army should have 2 wounds, and the normal cavalry should have 1. What's wrong with that? Okay, so it's basically everything's parked in front of me, and then we're going to have some shooting attacks and some spells. So, lost a few rangers from I guess maybe the Fiery Convocation, or is that something different? The Gyrocopter takes a wound, but holds, does not get killed, so that's nice. And going on to my turn. So, Gyrocopter parks in front of the Ethereal Cavalry unit. Now, if you're ethereal, can you just pass through enemy units? Because I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like you can't. That would make sense that you could, but I don't remember seeing it in the rules. So this combat's going on still. So I charge in the Doomseeker and the Dwarf Warriors into the flank of the dragon, and do not kill it, oddly enough, and the Doomseeker gets eaten. I've turned my King and Ironbreakers to face that way as well, because obviously the enemy are deserting that flank and heading over here. And then I start blasting. Organ Gun, Iron Drakes, Anvil of Doom, Quarrelers, Thane with Handgun, Grudge Thrower, everything blasting away. And I managed to kill quite a lot, actually. So, or do I kill quite a lot, or do I just wound a lot? Let's see. So, I think... Hold on, gone too far. So, I put... Definitely went too far there. So, I put wounds onto various units around here, I think. You can see I've buffed up the Iron Drake's armour, because I think they're going to get shot next turn. And... yeah, so I shot down... I don't know if I actually shot down a complete chariot or if I just put some wounds onto these. But blasted away. There's more blasting next turn. So in the enemy turn, dragon into the anvil. Now these guys are ethereal again, so they're not charging. They just want to sit there and be ethereal for a while. And... oh yeah, actually, that is a point. It doesn't matter if you could move through a unit with ethereal, because the point at which you cast it... wait a minute, would you have already had to have declared a charge? What kind of spell is it? Oh, it's a conveyance. Okay, yeah. So you would have already had to have charged, and then you wouldn't be able to cast it. Yep, I get it. So you can't be ethereal and fight with them at the same time. So every Elves moves up into the middle, ready to strike next turn. The anvil gets killed in one go, sadly. And the dragon is then able to get out of the arc of the Ironbreakers. But I'm mostly going to ignore it. So then on my turn 3, that's when the blasting really starts. The Thane, I think, might have a go at the dragon. Everyone else starts shooting. The organ gun, iron drakes. Plink loads of wounds onto all these chariots. That one's taken 3. Or maybe that one's got 3 left. Maybe that one's got 1 left. But there's wounds splashed out on all of them, so they're all mostly dead. My gyrocopter flees from combat this turn. This unit has the highest unit strength, flees from them, and manages to get across this unit so they get stuck, because the chariot moved out the way. So they are not quite able to catch the gyrocopter who's fleeing. And in the enemy turn. Now, this guy, we determine he's just in the flank of the Iron Drakes. So obviously, this is kind of laziness on my part, because I could have easily just turned them a teensy bit to get everyone in the front, and then I could definitely stand and shoot against everybody. But because I just assumed it was front, and slightly miscalculated there, and he ends up slightly in the flank. So really, there was no reason for me to allow that flank charge. And then the other 2 go into the Dwarf Warriors, which is okay because they'll end up overrunning into the Iron Breakers with a king, which is what I want. I want him to be fighting things. So, the gyrocopter flees because it's charged by these guys, and it was already fleeing, so it has to continue fleeing. And this brought up a really interesting rules conundrum. So, you're a flyer, so if you're fleeing through dangerous terrain, you don't have to take the test because you can fly over it. However, this particular dangerous terrain has enemies in it. And we couldn't find anything in the rules about opting to fly over enemy units when fleeing. It specifically mentions dangerous terrain, you can avoid the test. It doesn't say anywhere that we could find. We had one of the TOs searching as well. We couldn't find any reference to a flyer fleeing through an enemy unit and being able to fly over them and avoid taking the test. So, if that isn't in there, and we played it correctly and that you do have to take the test, then I'm going to assume it represents, as the flying unit is fleeing overhead, panicking, the enemy rabble are looking up and just taunting it and throwing rocks at it, which makes it quite dangerous. If it is something that's mentioned in the rules, then let me know, because we couldn't find it and we went through lots of different sections looking for that. So the shooting over here has been mostly ineffective, because obviously these guys were fighting so far against the gyrocopter, but they don't do much this turn. We've got 2 units of cavalry charging into the gyrocopter. Was this done incorrectly? So, let's see how it was. Let's go back. So these guys charge into the gyro, and so do those guys. Can they shuffle along to make space for this unit to fit into the flank, or do they have to just go in and maximise and sit there? Someone let me know, which would have prevented these guys from being able to then charge into the flank as well. But I don't mind it. It doesn't actually... It's not negative to me. It's not to my detriment, to my chances of winning, I think. So it actually gets this unit in a position where I can shoot them. But is it something that shouldn't be able to happen? Should this unit just have to stop there and block that unit coming in? Okay, the dragon is just repositioning, ready to eat people, and it just tries to drop a flame template but doesn't kill anybody that I can recall. So the gyrocopter that fled is then shot by the archers anyway and dies, so that's sad. Actually, yeah, a couple of them do get flamed. 4 actually. They die. The dwarf warriors die, and the chariots, because we determined that they were in the arc of the iron breakers, so they don't want to just rest there, so they go in and hit the flank of the iron breakers, which is fine because now we're fighting and the king can bust his way through the ranks and start smacking them around a bit. 2 Iron Drakes die as a result of the chariot flank charge, and then they're able to fall back and just turn around to face it. For the record, I do think my Iron Drakes, even though they're not technically the best painted Iron Drakes in the world, because there are some amazing ones out there, I think my Iron Drake colour scheme might be the coolest. Controversial? I think it might be. So, turn 4 for me. The Rangers, so let's see what was going on here. The Rangers charged in to this unit of cavalry, which were not ethereal anymore. And after casualties had been dished out, the centre of the unit, because I won the combat, because you can see they overran into the Doomseeker after dispatching the gyrocopter. So I went in, got into combat here. At the end, the centre to centre was that direction, so the enemy fled off the table, and then the Rangers pursued and didn't catch them, which means they're now going to get flanked there. But did kill an enemy unit with a wizard in it, which is great. More shooting back and forth there, not much going on. The Quarrelers tried to charge one of the chariots, but they didn't make it, so they just get stuck there. The king managed to whomp to death the Skycutter chariot with the hero on it, whose name I can't remember. Let's have a look. What kind of hero was it? A noble, there we go. So the king whomped him in the face, and he's dead. So it's looking okay actually, and then, to make things even better, the Iron Drakes in combat kill the chariot. So Iron Drakes, do not underestimate them. Even when they get flank charged, they ended up killing the chariot the next turn. Okay, not much shooting, success, and turn 4 for the enemy. So, Skycutter into the Organ Gun. Dragon into the Thane, which is then going to overrun into the Grudge Thrower. But this is kind of how games go. There's a dragon, you can't do anything about it really. And you just see how much it can kill, try and limit how much it can kill by the end of the game. Which is a sad state of affairs for the game to be in, I think. Or maybe it's just a sad indictment of my list building abilities, and maybe I should come up with a way to slaughter dragons. So we've got cavalry into the flank of the Rangers. We've got archers amassing to shoot the Iron Drakes, 2 of them left. And Thunderers occasionally taking shooting casualties, but not very much. We've got a chariot into these Quarrelers. And the Organ Gun's dead, and the Skycutter spins round on the spot. The Thane gets killed and overrun into the Grudge Thrower for the dragon, as you'd expect. And the Rangers actually just give ground. They don't even flee from the chariots, that's cool. But unfortunately they're out of arc for the Iron Breakers now, so I can't charge them there. Into my turn 5, so I can shoot these knights now with the Thunderers, that's nice. The dragon kills the Grudge Thrower this turn and chooses to turn round and face this way, where all the points are with my king. The king turned round, and a couple more archers get killed, and on to the next turn. I'm not worried about being charged in the flank by dragons or anything, because king's still going to be able to hit something. And we're just going to have a big old fight. So, the Silver Helms charge into the Thunderers on the left flank, and I'm not sure if I like their chances that much, because there's only 2 of them. And let's do some fighting. Well, the king and all his pals are dead, which is very sad. So the king challenges out the dragon, and gets killed in 1 round from full health. Wow, wow, wow. So, yes, and I think the stomps are what put the dragons over the top in terms of damage output. Because the normal attacks, there's only so many of them, but then the stomps are usually a huge amount as well. So, very powerful, and just gets rid of the king in 1 go. A fairly defensively kitted out king as well. And this combat, just nothing going on. They don't do anything to each other. Chariots aren't that great when they're not charging, so nothing either way there. And not much going on here either. Yep, there's only 1 left, and the Thunderers lose combat, give ground, and almost reach the edge. My turn 6. So the Iron Drakes turn round to shoot the Skycutter, and I think they maybe get it down to a wound, or do 1 wound to it. I can't remember which way round the tokens were. The Quarrelers lose combat, and the chariot decides not to go after them, just leave them there for the dragon to eat. And the dragon then does eat them. And the Iron Drakes do not get charged by a chariot, because it doesn't have a death wish. And they take some shooting damage and flee into the woods, which then gives them cover, so no one else is able to finish them off, and that's how the game ends. So most of my army is dead, and considering my opponent played in a very aggressive manner, it worked out very well. I managed to kill or heavily wound a lot of the chariots. I killed lots of chariots, so I did quite well in killing stuff, but the dragon just ate everybody, and the chariots that did get in did a good job eating everybody as well. So, what would have been the optimal way to play High Elves in this game? Because some of the chariots ended up going into combat and dying. So some of them would have been better off just not doing that, or only going after weaker units, which they didn't, which you've got to give credit for when your opponent gives you more of a game, rather than hiding with units that might die. So that made it more of a fun game, but it wasn't necessarily that optimal, but the High Elves still won. So rewarded for that playstyle is probably something you would want to see, isn't it? You want aggressive play rewarded, I think, so we have more of a game, rather than what we could get, which is everyone else hides because they might die, and the dragon just goes and eats units until he's wounded, and then he flies away and hides as well, which no one wants to see. But the rules encourage that style of play at the moment. So, let's look at the final result for that. And it's very rare, actually, because the Dwarves actually lose 16-4. That's one of the biggest losses the Dwarves have had, actually. Usually it's 11-9 loss in most of the games. So, what do I put that down to? It's a fast, hard-hitting list that does well on the charge, and there was only so much of them I was able to shoot before they got in. So they were able to do some good damage. The Iron Drakes ended up surviving, despite being flank charged by a chariot, which is good. The King, very disappointing, dying in a round to a dragon. And I think kitting out the King even more defensively might be the way to go. I'm not sure about the Rune of Preservation on him, because you think he's got 6 wounds, prevent, killing blow and multi-wound, but it's not actually those things that got him killed. It was just loads of attacks and stomps that killed him. So maybe I would have been better off with a rune that just gave him a better save or a ward save. Or keep him in a unit that has a banner that gives him a ward save as well. Also options. So there's more things I can do with the hero on Shieldbearers going forward. I've also magnetised his arms, so I can give him a hand weapon and shield, or I can do a banner to go on his arm as well, if I paint one. So, got some options there. I want to run the engineering list at some point also, because there's a load of stuff that I don't use, that I have a billion of in my army. I've got loads of war machines, loads of gyrocopters now, loads of iron drakes, which I couldn't use in engineering, but in general. Loads of crossbows, loads of handguns, loads of dwarf warriors, iron breakers, hammerers, miners, doom seekers. I can potentially run 3 of those. I could run 2 and a demon slayer. The reason I didn't in this event is because I just thought it was too many points, because there are too many other units I wanted to fit in there because they're new and freshly painted, so I couldn't afford the demon slayer as well. Even though you can kit out a really expensive demon slayer who doesn't give away victory points, but then he still dies quite easily to shooting. So it's not that great. And it's all very well saying, okay, opponent, you're not allowed to score 500 points in this game. They'll probably still win 11-9, because there's a lot of your army that isn't able to do anything because it gets shot to death immediately. So it's a tough situation for the Dwarves at the moment. I think going all in on war machines can work sometimes, but if you get really bad, or even mediocre luck, then you just get wiped out. If you have a really lucky round, then you just table people. But does that happen? I don't know. Maybe massive unit of Iron Drakes would be fun to try at some point as well. I could do 20 with a full command, and a magic banner, and a hero or 2 in there with them. That would be quite fun, perhaps. Let me know what you think is a strong list for the Dwarves at the moment. And I mean strong by Dwarf standards, not by Old World standards, because I'm not sure Dwarves can put out really strong lists compared to some of the other stuff we see around at the moment. Let's see where I finished, actually. Out of 24 players... Oh, that's alright then, I didn't finish like in the bottom 3 or anything. 19th, so we can live with that. Yeah, so not great. Did get a win. A decent win. Got a draw that felt very unlucky at the time to not be a win. And 2 of the losses were very, very close as well. So it's pretty much standard dwarf behaviour, and then the last game kind of spiralled out of control a bit once dragons start getting into your lines and start munching on things. And that can happen. And I wasn't able to kill all of the cheap stuff in this game. I killed a few decently expensive things, actually. I did some reasonable killing, but barely ended up with anything alive, which was obviously the downfall in this one. So, okay, I'm going to wrap this one up shortly, so let me know if you've got any more comments before I go. You can have another look at my beautiful thumbnail, though, while I tell you that you should probably like the video and subscribe and check out all the links in the description, including the various fundraising sources. And there's the Patreon and PayPal there, which basically pays for extra tournament tickets or tournament travel, so I can bring you more of these. There weren't any battle reports the last couple of weeks because, first of all, I think I wasn't available, and then a suitable opponent wasn't available the following week. So we'll be back on the battle report trail very shortly as well. Should be back to once per week, with Old World, Age of Sigmar being cycled in as well. And also I've just got the new bolt action rulebook, so you might even see some wild World War II on this channel with maybe the Belgians, the well-known World War II powerhouse of Belgium, who were in the war for about 2 weeks. So any victories I have with them on the tabletop are probably equivalent to how many victories they had in the entire war, I would imagine. So that'll be exciting for anyone that's into that. The next tournament coming up, I'm going to crack open my tournament calendar here and let you know, so you know what to look forward to. Well, in 2 weeks I'm running some events. I'm running a Dead Zone and Kings of War event in Nottingham, so if anyone is interested in those, let me know. There's still some tickets available for those. I've got, in the rest of October, there is Age of Sigmar at the end of this month. Then, in November, we've got Kings of War, and we've got Old World. We've got 2 Old World, actually, in November, so that's exciting. And what else have we got? Right at the end of November, we've also got Age of Sigmar as well. So November's very busy for events. We've got one more in October, which is... see, that's in about 3 weeks. So we can look forward to that. And battle reports, non-stop battle reports, and painting. What am I going to paint next? I don't know. I do want to paint a second anvil, just for the hilarity of running 2 anvils of doom at the same time. I want to do a mining cart as well, and do more of a mining, like, engineer style list, just to try that out a bit. That's going to be fun. And obviously I need to finish painting more Bretonians. These men-at-arms have been staring at me for a while the Dwarves jump ahead of them in the queue. But they will get finished eventually, and then it'll be onto the fun stuff, which is the knights, obviously. Okay, time to wrap this one up. Don't forget to follow all my various social media as well that are linked in the description. There's Discord server, there's Facebook group, there's Twitter and all that good stuff, and obviously send me all your life savings via Patreon and PayPal so I can spend it on tournament tickets and more made-to-order dwarves. So that's where all my money goes at the moment. Okay, time to wrap this one up. So, all that remains to be said is, other than we despise dragons, is good night out there, whatever you are.